Hey guys, tonight we ride into the heart of the open steppe, endless grass. No roads, no fences, just sky and hoofbeats. The air smells faintly of smoked milk and cold iron, and you're already a little wind-chapped from the morning wind. Somewhere in the distance, a low, rhythmic drumming isn't a warband. It's a herd of ponies trotting over frost-cracked ground. You shift in the saddle. You don't know it yet, but this horse beneath you will sleep beside you, carry your groceries, listen to your secrets, and possibly outlive your father. Mongolia is not for the faint-hearted. The nights drop below freezing even in spring. The wind never stops blowing, and there's always the faint sense that you're being watched by wolves, by rivals, or by your own grandmother, who can still shoot from horseback at the age of 70. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and what time it is where you are in the comments. I love seeing how far this sleepy caravan travels. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you notice is the quiet. Not silence, no. The world here is never truly silent, but it's a hush that sits under everything. A blanket of low wind brushing through the grass. The flap of a yurt's felt covering. The wet snorting of horses clustered nearby. Tails twitching like metronomes. You sit atop a shaggy, barrel-chested Mongol pony, about half the height of a modern horse, but built like a tank. It's morning. Your legs are already sore, and the sun hasn't even cleared the horizon. The open land stretches in every direction. There are no walls, no signs, no markers, just you, your family's encampment, and about 200,000 blades of grass per square foot, and scattered across that green infinity. Dots of movement, other herds, other lives, all held together by 4 legs and a swishing tail. This is the Mongol world before the empire, before Genghis Khan, before anyone bothered writing down what was happening. And yet, already, horses run everything. They're not just transportation. They're your heat source, your milk bar, your social currency, and occasionally your therapist. Mongols didn't just ride horses, they lived because of them. You dismount clumsily, knees wobbling. Your horse snorts as if judging you, which it probably is. Mongol horses weren't coddled. They roamed semi-free, grazed all day, and were expected to survive on their own in -40 snowstorms. But they were never alone, not really, because loneliness, even for a horse, was considered dangerous, unhealthy, unnatural. You shuffle over to a stone marker near the camp, a simple upright slab carved with swirling patterns. It's a horse stone, a marker used for tying horses overnight, yes, but also a kind of early monument to their importance. Some historians believe these stones were spiritual. Others say they were just really old hitching posts. Historians still argue whether they served ritual or practical purposes, or both. As you pass it, your fingers brush the cool surface. Lichen grows in the carvings. There's something oddly comforting about it. Maybe it's just the weight of history. Or maybe it's the way this place hums with invisible bonds between land, people, and hoofed creatures with very strong opinions. In the center of the camp, a few mares nudge their foals, licking them awake. You watch as a child not much older than you ties 2 ponies together with a loose rope, not tight enough to restrict movement, but just enough that they'll stay close. Companionship is taught here, even among animals. You squat by the fire as breakfast begins to bubble. Fermented mare's milk in one pot, boiled millet in another. You think of your own horse, already grazing nearby. It has no name. Names are rare among herders, but you've come to recognize its personality. A little aloof, moody when tired, weirdly obsessed with standing near firewood piles. Your uncle joins you at the fire and tells a story about a horse that once woke an entire camp at night, whinnying wildly. The next morning, the herders discovered a pack of wolves had been circling just outside the firelight. The horse had sensed it before anyone else. He chuckles and slurps his milk, then adds, "That horse had a sixth sense." Or maybe it just hated wolves. That's the thing about horses here, they're not just tools. Mongols treated them more like co-workers. And, unlike your actual co-workers, Mongol horses didn't ghost you at the end of a shift. They stayed nearby, always nearby. You glance again at the stone marker. Your own horse is tied there now, not alone, but paired with another. It leans in, breathing against its tether mate's flank. Mongols believed that no living creature should be left truly alone if it could be helped. That loneliness frayed spirit horse or human alike. The sun finally edges above the low hills. The world goes from cold blue to warm gold. Somewhere, a herder begins to sing soft, rhythmic, low. It's a song meant for horses, not lyrics, just tone and breath. Mongols believed that horses understood song, that it calmed their nerves, soothed their bellies, and reminded them they were not alone. You exhale, finally warm enough to stretch your fingers. A light breeze stirs the dry grass. The horses stand still, ears flicking, heads lowered. You realize something odd in all this space, this enormous nothingness. You don't feel small. You feel part of something. Because you are... And the horse next to you, chewing methodically, might not say it, but it knows you are too. You're 5 years old and already assigned a pony. It's not a toy, it's not a pet. It is a responsibility, and, more importantly, a reflection of your growing role in society. The pony is only slightly taller than you when you're standing, but its eyes suggest it's seen more winters than you have fingers. Mongol children learn to ride before they can read if they ever learn to read at all. Out here, reading is optional. Knowing how to stay on a moving horse at full gallop, not so much. Your first pony has a thick, tangled mane and a surprisingly judgmental stare. When you offer it a handful of dried grass, it turns its head in slow disbelief, as if you've committed a social faux pas. This is the beginning of your relationship. There are no riding lessons, no helmets, no gentle instructors holding your hands. There is your older cousin yelling, "Hold tighter," and there is the wind as the pony suddenly bolts, as if remembering somewhere it urgently has to be. You fly off within 20 seconds. Your mother doesn't gasp. She doesn't run to help. She casually flicks a piece of dust from her robe and says, "Again." You get back on. You fall off again. Repeat. By sunset, you're muddy, bruised, exhausted, and very slightly addicted. The feeling of motion, of control, of being one with something strong and strange and full of opinions is intoxicating. You still wobble in the saddle, but the pony doesn't buck you off anymore. It even turns when you lean a certain way. It's not affection, necessarily, but it's acknowledgement. And that's enough. In Mongol culture, ponies were more than animals. They were training partners, life mentors, even babysitters. It wasn't uncommon for toddlers to be strapped into sheepskin saddles and babysat by older ponies who'd been trained to walk in gentle circles. Think of it as the steppe version of daycare, but with more fur and the occasional goose attack. Yes, geese. You learn this quickly. Geese are the true tyrants of the encampment. Horses respect them. Children fear them. Your pony once kicked one square in the beak and was a legend for weeks. But even the geese can't ruin the strange bond beginning to form. Your days revolve around the pony now. You check its hooves each morning, awkwardly lifting one leg at a time and pretending to know what you're looking for. You brush it with a stiff hairbrush made from a goat's rib cage. You clean out its eyes with a piece of damp wool and whisper apologies when you poke it by accident. These rituals, small and mundane, slowly become sacred. At night, you sleep near your pony, not just because it's comforting, but because it's warm. Horses have a remarkable ability to generate heat, and Mongols often tuck themselves against their animals during cold snaps. You both huddle near the fire, your heads angled in opposite directions, but your breath synchronized. You've started dreaming of hooves. Your father tells you a story, a real one, apparently. A man once tried to ride a horse across the Gobi Desert alone. He didn't tether his horse to another, said he didn't want to slow down. Your father pauses here for dramatic effect. He died. Horse kept going, straight back to camp, didn't even look back. He shrugs. Never be too proud to tie your life to someone or something that knows the way home. You nod like you understand. You don't. Not really. But the next morning, you ask to tether your pony beside your uncle's. You don't explain why. Tethering, you've learned, is not about control, it's about connection. Mongols believed horses, like people, grew anxious if left alone. Separation could make them skittish, harder to train, less inclined to return if released. So they tied their horses in pairs, rotated their grazing partners, and made sure no horse ever spent too much time in solitude. Even wild herds, your uncle says, have their own social structures. Mares with best friends, young stallions forming bachelor bands, old horses who lead not by strength, but by remembering every waterhole in the valley. There's even an old Mongol term, urga-tugal, that refers to a horse who helps guide others. Not a leader exactly, but a steadying presence. Like your grandmother, someone jokes. She glares and continues stitching a saddle with ominous focus. One evening, as the sun collapses into the horizon like a dropped yurt, you watch your pony nuzzle against its tethered companion. Not in an overly sentimental way. Just a light bump of the nose, a quiet, familiar touch. You mirror it later by nudging your cousin's elbow during dinner. He doesn't look up, but he doesn't move away either. Horses teach you how to connect not just with them, but with each other. There's a fringe theory among some modern animal behaviorists that Mongol horses exhibit a kind of learned empathy due to their close daily contact with humans. It's not scientifically proven, but the anecdotal stories are hard to ignore. Horses standing between children and danger. Horses refusing to gallop when their rider is too weak to hold on. Horses returning to camp alone, leading search parties to injured herders. Historians still argue whether these behaviors are learned, instinctive, or exaggerated. But in the steppe, no one doubts the truth. If you treat a horse like family, it treats you like herd. The wind picks up. You press into the pony's side, and it leans back, just slightly, just enough. In that moment, with a full belly, warm hooves near your back, and the stars beginning to crackle overhead, you realize something. You're not learning how to ride a pony. You're learning how not to be lonely. The idea of a stable makes you laugh now. Or rather, it would if laughing didn't risk inhaling more of the fine, powder-dry dust currently swirling around your ankles. Out here, in the endless open of the Mongolian steppe, the very concept of enclosing a horse in a wooden box is not just impractical, it's insulting. Horses aren't meant to be stored. They're meant to move, breathe, roam. And Mongols didn't just acknowledge that, they built an entire lifestyle around it. You trudge back toward the encampment after helping herd a few of the more enthusiastic young ponies that had wandered toward a distant stream. The camp has shifted slightly since yesterday. Tents have been rotated for better wind protection, and your family's felt-wrapped yurt now opens toward the east, catching the first rays of morning sun. Mongol life is mobile, but the herds stay central. They're the gravity that holds everything else in orbit. Even your sleeping arrangements change based on the herd's location. Sometimes you sleep on the edge of the camp, close to the foals in case one of them gets clever and tries to run. Other times, you're posted farther out, listening for thieves or wolves, or worse, rival clans. Mongol horses don't just stand guard, they are the guard. More than once, your family has woken up not from human alarm, but because a horse stomped 3 times, deliberately and loud, when something stirred in the tall grass. Nomads don't build barns, they build habits. You're learning to recognize them: daily rotations, grazing routes, watering cycles. The horses graze in loose clusters, never far from the camp, but never too close to trample your breakfast, either. And even in their apparent freedom, they're watched. Always. Mongol herders could spot a limping gait from a mile off. They could tell if a mare was anxious by the angle of her ears. You're starting to see it too. That subtle shift in posture that means a horse is ready to bolt. The way they flick their tails faster when a storm's coming even before the clouds arrive. Your grandfather once told you, "We don't keep the horses let us keep pace." It's a poetic way of saying they do what they want, unless you understand what they need, which, often, is simply space and consistency. Mongols didn't train their horses with harsh discipline. They trained them with rhythm. Grazing time, riding time, watering time, singing time. The horses learned the tempo of the day, and so did you. Today, your uncle is mending a lasso, not a cowboy-style rope, but a long, sturdy line made from braided horsehair. It's not for roping cattle. It's for catching the occasionally dramatic adolescent pony that decides freedom is more important than breakfast. You help him twist the strands together, and he tells you how the best horsehair comes from the tail, not the mane. Stronger, less prone to tangling. He says this as he untangles it for the 3rd time. You hear laughter from the other side of the camp. A young girl has just attempted her first solo ride and predictably has discovered that ponies do not always take direction from giggles. She's fine, a little dusty. Her pony stands nearby, looking utterly unconcerned. Another rite of passage completed. There's a fringe detail you overheard from a visiting trader once, apparently. European knights needed heavy lances, armored stirrups, and 2 stable hands just to get on a warhorse. Mongol kids. They could ride at full gallop by age 7 and shoot a bird mid-flight while upside down in the saddle. You're not quite there yet, but you can now steer using just your knees. Sometimes, you take your turn watching the herd as the sun begins to slide. Horses here aren't penned, they're gently shadowed. Mongol herders rode in wide circles around the grazing ponies, never boxing them in, just reminding them where not to wander. It's a system based on trust, observation, and the occasional shouted warning that translates roughly to, "No bad pony." That's the 3rd time today. As twilight deepens, you spot a pair of stallions facing each other. They're not fighting yet, just assessing. Ears flat, muscles taut, eyes unblinking. You edge your mount a little closer, but not too close. Your own pony seems equally uninterested in getting involved. Eventually, one stallion tosses his head, snorts like an overconfident uncle at a wedding, and trots off. The moment dissolves. Mongol horses might be tough, but they're not reckless. Neither are you. Now. Later that evening, you help guide the herd back closer to camp for the night. There's no gate to close, no barn door to latch, just soft voices, the clink of harness, the low hum of evening song as everyone human and horse winds down. You tie your pony to a familiar post, but not tightly. The point isn't restraint, it's reassurance. A reminder you're not alone. You're tethered. There is comfort in that. Historians still argue whether this free-roaming, lightly managed method of herding was more efficient than stabling. But Mongols never cared about efficiency. They cared about harmony, about staying in motion with the land, the weather, and their animals. You don't confine what carries your soul. You walk beside it. You give your pony a last brush, then lean your head against its side. The thick coat smells of smoke and dust and sun-warmed grass. Its breathing is slow, steady. Yours matches. You close your eyes. Tonight, you'll sleep with hoofbeats in your dreams. The first time you try to milk a mare, she kicks a bucket into the next province. You are, to be fair, not very good at it. Your hands are cold, your timing is off, and you've made the grievous mistake of staring directly at her with the naive enthusiasm of someone who still believes in mutual respect. Your cousin snorts behind you both in amusement and warning. She knows you're nervous, he says. Mares can smell your fear and your clumsiness. Milking mares is a Mongol morning ritual. It's not glamorous, it's not fast, but it's necessary. Because while the rest of the world was chugging cow or goat milk, Mongols were perfecting the art of arag fermented mare's milk. A slightly alcoholic, slightly fizzy, definitely acquired taste beverage that serves as breakfast, lunch, dinner, and social lubricant, all in one. You crouch again, more respectfully this time, and approach from the side, not the rear. The mare flutters her ears, glances back, and sighs as if to say, "Fine, try again." You manage to get a few rhythmic squeezes before she shifts her weight, and you nearly topple into the churn bucket. Still, it's progress. Milking is done in the morning and evening, when the foals are still young and drinking. Mongols would allow the foal to suckle just enough to trigger the milk flow, then gently pull it away and take over. It's a system based on timing, tact, and knowing when to duck. You don't just drink arag, you share it. It's the centerpiece of hospitality. Visitors are always offered a bowl, usually lukewarm, frothy, and served with a proud look from the host. You're starting to enjoy it. Sort of. It's like fizzy yogurt married a sour apple and ran off with a goat. Refreshing in a confusing way. Your uncle tells you that no two batches taste alike. The flavor depends on the mare's mood, the grass she ate, the weather, and possibly whether or not you annoyed her that morning. Some say that truly good arag requires a touch of chaos, Mongol chaos, specifically. You help pour the fresh milk into a large leather bag called a kokhur, which is then hung from the central beam of the yurt. It gets stirred throughout the day with a wooden paddle. Some families hang it where people will bump into it accidentally. Accelerating fermentation? Yes, you are now fermenting your beverages via clumsy foot traffic. Your grandmother, who runs the arag operation like a general directing troops, watches the bag carefully. Not bubbly enough, she declares, and orders another hour of stirring. You comply, hand aching, while your pony watches you from outside, chewing hay with what you interpret as smug disinterest. But mare's milk is more than a drink. It's tradition, it's identity, it's nutrition, high in iron and vitamin C. It's shockingly healthy for something that also has the potential to mildly inebriate you by lunch. Mongol warriors drank it on campaign. It's said Genghis Khan himself could ride for days, sustained by nothing but dried meat, arag, and righteous anger. As you stir, your father launches into a familiar tale. Once, the Khan offered arag to a Chinese diplomat. The man refused, said it smelled like horse breath, so the Khan smiled, nodded, and declared war. You're not sure if that's true. Historians still argue whether diplomatic arag-related insults ever started actual conflicts, but no one denies the symbolic importance of the drink. Later, you help carry the fermented batch to a family gathering. Everyone sits cross-legged around the yurt, and bowls of arag make the rounds. You take your first sip cautiously. It's tangy today, a little smoky. Your cousin leans in and whispers, "Tastes like last week's rain." You nod, pretending to understand what that means. It sounds poetic enough to pass. The horses outside have been fed, watered, brushed, and praised. It's one of the few times in the day they're left alone, free to nap or roll dramatically in the dirt. But even now, you're thinking about them. Will the mare be in the mood to be milked tomorrow? Will the foal share or throw a tantrum? Will your hands stop cramping? The relationship between Mongols and their horses wasn't just about riding, It was deeply biological. They consumed the horse's milk, wore garments made from their hair, and sometimes, in desperate times, ate horse meat, but always with reverence. Mongols didn't worship horses, they honored them. You learn quickly that there's a difference. You leave the yurt after sunset. The sky is a deep blue tapestry, punched through with stars. Your pony lifts its head as you approach, nostrils flaring in greeting. You scratch under its jaw, where you've discovered a soft spot that makes it lean into your hand like a cat. In the darkness, you hear another mare whicker softly as her foal nudges at her side. A rhythmic sloshing sound comes from a nearby yurt, the arag bag still being stirred by someone late to the chore. A lullaby carries faintly across the wind. Horses are settling in. So are you. You curl up near the fire, stomach full of fermented something, brain fuzzy with stories, legs sore from another day of not falling off. You think of tomorrow's milking of the warm belly of the mare, the smell of her flank, the first trickle of milk into the pail. It will probably kick you again. But maybe not. You smile. You wake to a sound you've learned to recognize instantly, a double snort, followed by an impatient hoof scrape. It's your pony, and she's annoyed. Not panicked, not distressed, just mildly insulted that you're not up yet. You roll out of your felt blanket, rub the crust of sleep from your eyes, and trudge toward her. She flicks her tail in judgment. Your day begins not with breakfast, but with a conversation, a non-verbal one, conducted through tiny gestures, shifts in weight, and the occasional squeaky whinny. Mongols didn't just ride horses. They read them. Every twitch had a meaning. Every ear tilt carried intent. Today, your first lesson is tail language. A loose, slow swish board, a high, stiff wag, agitated, the helicopter spin, duck. You dodge a half-hearted attempt at that last one and move to brushing. Not because she needs it. Mongol horses are tough and often left rugged, but because you're practicing the art of paying attention. You use a bone comb, working gently through the thick winter coat. The comb once belonged to your grandfather, carved with simple horsehead designs. The mane is tangled, but not unclean. Your pony tolerates the brushing with saintly endurance, occasionally sighing in that dramatic way horses do when humans are trying their best. Then come the ears. Mongol herders swore by ear reading. Forward means curious. Sideways means sleepy. Flattened prey. You learn to spot the subtleties when the ears flick independently, when they angle slightly back, but not all the way. It's like watching someone shrug with their eyebrows. Horses have entire conversations through their ears. The problem is, you only understand every third word. You try to mimic the sounds your uncle makes when calming his horse, a low ch-ch-ch and a guttural hum that sounds like someone tuning a cello. Your pony blinks, not impressed. Still, she doesn't bolt, which is progress. There's a moment where you swear she's about to yawn, but no, she's testing you. Mongols believed a horse that mimicked human stillness was watching, learning. They didn't just see horses as instinctual beasts, they saw them as mirrors. And mirrors, as your aunt says, are not always flattering. You saddle up. It's your turn to do a perimeter ride. Not for defense, there are no immediate threats, but as a daily rhythm. Mongols moved often, but each site still needed its own quiet survey. A few other riders trot alongside you, forming a loose arc. You glance left and see your cousin's horse sidestepping dramatically every time it hits a mud puddle. She thinks she's royalty, he mutters. Your own pony strides with that particular Mongol horse gait. Short, sturdy, efficient. She doesn't waste motion. You guide her with your knees, barely touching the reins. The wind whistles through dry grass, and above, a falcon rides the air currents like a lazy feather. This is what morning looks like here, open, quiet, alert. As you ride, You practice reading more signs: the flick of a tail from a distant gelding, signaling a swarm of gnats, the quick shuffle of hooves that might mean a limp developing, the subtle groupings of mares and foals. You're learning to interpret herd dynamics like a soap opera: who's friends with whom, who had a spat yesterday, who's being dramatic for attention. You pass a pair of ponies tied together, one older, steady, and the other young and twitchy. Tethering pairs like this isn't just practical, it's emotional. Horses left alone can become jumpy, even depressed. Mongols knew that. They rotated the pairings to keep every horse mentally balanced, a social routine as carefully managed as their diet. And when things did go wrong, when a horse panicked, refused to eat, or wandered off, they didn't just punish it. They asked why. Mongol horsemen would talk to their animals, not in baby voices, but in calm, rhythmic tones. They'd sing lullabies, hum into their ears, sometimes whisper secrets. You try it. Your pony's ear flicks toward you as you mumble a half-remembered song, something your mother used to hum while kneading dough. You fumble the words and hum instead. She slows slightly. Maybe it's working, or maybe she's just tired. You'll take either. You return to camp just as the sun rises fully. Golden light spills across the felt yurts and grazing herds. You dismount and lead your pony to water. She drinks slowly, methodically, and flicks a drop at you for good measure. The day has properly begun. Your cousin runs up with news: one of the colts has been biting the other foals. There's an immediate discussion, not of punishment, but of cause. Was he weaned too soon? Is he lonely? Bored? You all debate the possibilities like seasoned psychologists. Horse behavior was never just accepted, it was interpreted, understood. Mongol society had no patience for lazy assumptions, especially where animals were concerned. Historians still argue whether this depth of horse-human understanding was exaggeration. Surely, they say, it's impossible that people with no written manuals could maintain such intuitive knowledge across generations. But the truth is, they didn't need books. They had time, tradition, and 1,000 years of hooves in the dirt. Before night falls, you sneak a moment alone with your pony. You whisper to her, not for training, not for performance, just because it feels right. Maybe you tell her about the biting colt. Maybe you thank her for not flinging you off during the morning ride. Maybe you just breathe, and she listens. Her ears twitch, just slightly. And in that tiny flicker of cartilage and fur, you hear it. I know. By now, you've figured out that shouting at a horse is about as effective as shouting at the wind, or a yak, or your older brother when he's 3 bowls of arag deep. Mongol horses don't respond to volume. They respond to nuanced sound, motion, rhythm, and that very particular flick of the wrist that says, move, but not like last time. Today, you're learning the art of herding without touching. No fences, no bridles, just you, your pony, a stick, and a language built on whistles and whooshes. You and your cousin are assigned to move a small herd of 30 horses from the riverbank back toward the camp. They've grazed there long enough. Now it's time to bring them in for watering, tethering, and if you're lucky, some impromptu racing once the adults look away. You mount up, shift your weight forward, and let your pony know it's time to work. She understands instantly. Her ears rotate forward. Her muscles tense. She's in the zone. There's no cracking whip, no stern commands. You start with a whistle, a high, trilling sound that makes a few ears flick toward you, then a low huh from your cousin. That one means move along. You follow it up with a wide arc of your herding stick, not to strike, but to signal. The horses move, slowly at first, then more confidently. Your stick is simple, long, wooden, polished from use, and tipped with a tuft of wool. It's not for hitting, it's for guiding. You extend it sideways when a mare starts drifting too far. You lift it overhead in a little dance that means keep straight. It feels less like driving and more like conducting an orchestra of slightly sarcastic tubas. The herd responds, "You keep your distance, just close enough to steer, never close enough to panic." Mongol herders knew that pressure breaks trust. You don't chase the horses, you invite them to move. And sometimes you negotiate. There's one stallion in particular, Chestnut, moody, possibly a nihilist, who always needs a second opinion before agreeing to anything. You let him think it's his idea. By the time you near camp, your voice is hoarse from whistling and your thighs ache from balancing in the saddle. But the horses are moving smoothly. No injuries, no drama, just the soft clatter of hooves on dirt and the occasional tail swish commentary. Your cousin grins and tosses you a piece of dried curd. "Best round yet," he says. "Nobody kicked, nobody cried, not even you." You don't dignify that with a response, but he's not wrong. You unsaddle your pony and give her a drink. She nuzzles the water, then your arm. You pretend not to be emotionally affected. Back at camp, your uncle tells you more about the unwritten codes of herding. Mongol riders used a whole range of signals, tongue clicks, whistles, low hums to communicate across distances. These weren't just for the horses, they were for other herders too. A high whistle might mean turning left, a sharp cha might say, "We have a runner," an elongated hum, "Don't panic, but there's a wolf behind you." This decentralized communication system worked because it was built on instinct and routine. Everyone knew the cues, horses included. And they responded because they were trained from birth not through brute force, but through repetition and rhythm. Young foals watched their mothers respond to the sounds. Then they mimicked. Then they lived it. It reminds you of how toddlers learn to walk, not by being forced, but by watching, trying, wobbling, and being endlessly observed. Mongol horse culture was basically toddler daycare at a gallop. You remember a fringe tidbit your aunt once mentioned: some horses could recognize over 30 different whistle patterns. That's more than your little brother. Some even learned which whistle meant their name, or at least their turn. One particularly clever gelding in your clan allegedly knew the difference between "come here," "run faster," and "you're in trouble." Historians still argue whether this was genuine comprehension or just well-timed coincidence. Either way, it worked. That evening, a storm rolls in, fast, dark, dramatic, the kind that turns camp chores into mud-based performance art. The horses begin to bunch up instinctively, flanks pressed together, heads low. You whistle softly to your pony, your version of "stay close." She trots over, ears twitching. You tether her beside the anxious foal from last week, the one that panics during thunder. Your pony nuzzles it, gently, and stands still. The foal stops shivering. There's no instruction manual for that, just instinct and kindness. As the wind picks up and the clouds churn above, you lie on your side inside the yurt, listening to the soft conversations of the horses outside, snorts, stomps, low murmurs, and beneath it all, the occasional human whistle, rising and falling like lullabies on the wind. You smile into your blanket. No fences, no gates, just trust, motion, and music. It's still dark when something nudges your foot, not sharply, just enough to say, "Wake up, now." You blink, and your pony's head is there, just outside the yurt flap, breath steaming in the cold air, ears angled forward. You sit up. She doesn't seem agitated, just alert, listening. Then you hear it too, a distant clink, then silence. A moment later, the faint, unmistakable crack of hooves on dry frost. Not yours, not from your herd. Something different. You pull on your coat, step outside, and scan the darkness. The night is vast. The moon hangs like polished bone above the plain. But your horse is already moving slow, deliberate. She walks ahead a few paces, then stops, glances back. It's not just a walk. It's a warning. Mongols trusted their horses more than their dogs when it came to sensing danger. Horses could pick up shifts in wind, temperature, tension in the herd. They noticed patterns before humans did who was missing, who was limping, who had wandered too far. They were alarm systems, weather forecasters, and emotional thermometers all in one. You reach her side. She exhales sharply, then angles her head toward a far rise where the shadows pulse strangely. You can't see anything yet, but you whistle low one long note, and your cousin stumbles out of his yurt, rubbing his eyes. He sees your pony's posture and doesn't ask questions. He starts saddling up. You don't need words. You've all grown up watching the same language tail flicks, ear angles, breath cadence, hoof posture. Your pony's tail is straight, not swishing. Her nostrils are flared, but she's not trembling. This is not panic, it's anticipation. You ride toward the ridge with your cousin. The herd has clustered closer to camp, restless but not scattered. That's a good sign. A few of the stallions snort, but no one breaks formation. Still, you keep your pony in step with the herd's edge, watching for strays. At the top of the hill, you see the source a pair of wandering goats. Not wolves, not raiders, just some idiot goats from the neighbor's herd. They pause when they see you, chew in slow defiance, then trot off with zero apology. You both exhale. Back at camp, your pony snorts, as if to say, "Told you it wasn't nothing." And it wasn't? Because even false alarms have purpose. They sharpen your senses, and they remind you who's really paying attention out here, the horses. While you sleep, they watch. While you eat, they listen. Mongols didn't just value horses for travel, they relied on them as early warning systems. Your aunt once claimed her pony predicted an earthquake by refusing to enter the yurt an hour before, stubbornly planted its hooves, stared at the earth, and shook its head. The quake came at dawn. No human had sensed it. Historians still argue whether that's possible, whether horses can truly detect seismic shifts or just react to tiny pre-shocks. But Mongol herders don't need lab data. They trust the signs, and they act. As the morning sky turns pink, you rejoin the camp's slow waking rhythm. The herders are stirring. Foals bleat. Someone sneezes from a yurt, followed by a muttered curse and a cough. Your pony leads herself to the watering trough, as if she's earned a treat, which she has. You bring her a handful of dried apples, one of the rare delicacies you sometimes trade for from merchants. She crunches them like a queen. Then she headbutts your shoulder, softly. Message received. That day, as the herd moves out to graze, you pay closer attention to your pony's reactions than usual. You realize how much she communicates when she steps slower, when she glances back, when she stops just before a rise to sniff the wind. Every movement means something. A question, a suggestion, a warning. She becomes your thermostat, too. When the wind shifts, her coat rises slightly. When the air pressure dips, she paws the ground. When the clouds bank low and heavy, she stares at them with the weary look of someone who knows mud is coming. And when you're anxious, when your ride is too stiff, your hands too tight, she lets you know. Not with violence, with silence. She stops listening. She glazes over. You learn to breathe better, ride looser, think less. And suddenly, she listens again. Horses, you learn, aren't mirrors. They're barometers of storms, of moods, of intentions. You remember a fringe folktale told by an old traveler. A Mongol general once rode with a horse that refused to follow his commands the night before a battle. It turned back again and again. The general, furious, sent it away and took another. He died. The first horse returned to camp calm, unharmed, and possibly smug. Is it true? Probably not. But in the steppe, truth is sometimes less important than meaning. By evening, the wind has settled. The herd grazes in peace. You walk beside your pony, one hand on her neck. Her body is warm, her eyes half-lidded. You hum a little tune. She doesn't respond. Not because she doesn't hear, but because she does, and trusts it enough not to react. You settle near the fire that night with a new understanding. You don't train a horse to obey. You listen until it teaches you what it already knows. Today is the day you get your first saddle. Well, a saddle. It's not technically new. It once belonged to your aunt, who inherited it from her uncle, who claims it was stitched together from leather. He bartered off a Turk for 2 songs and half a jar of honey. No one really believes him, but the saddle does have a slight cinnamon smell. You run your fingers along the stitching. It's old but solid, hand-sewn and reinforced with bone buckles and worn velvet edges. The leather is sun-darkened and cracked in spots, but it holds weight like it's still young. This saddle has seen things: raids, storms, weddings, races, long quiet rides where no one spoke except the wind. It also comes with something unexpected: charms. Hanging from the saddle are tiny woven talismans, some made of dyed wool, others from carved bone, tiny beads, and even a rabbit's foot that's probably more decorative than lucky. Your grandmother explains each one like she's reciting a family tree. This one protects from lightning, she says, pointing to a faded blue tassel. This one keeps the horse's legs strong, she continues, touching a knotted braid of red string. And this one keeps away saddle sores, she finishes, pointing to a small silver disc etched with spirals. You nod solemnly. You don't want to jinx it, but your backside is already sore just looking at the stirrups. Mongols didn't see saddles as mere riding gear. Saddles were symbols of age, of experience, of spiritual armor. The decorations weren't just aesthetic, they were shields, woven prayers, and reminders of ancestors. Horses, like people, needed protection, especially before big events. And you've got a long ride ahead. Your pony eyes the saddle warily. She's been ridden bareback for most of your training. Now, this contraption of leather, bone, and jangly luck charms is about to be cinched onto her ribs. You go slow. You hum. She steps back once but doesn't bolt. You thank her with a rub on the neck, then secure the girth strap. It makes a satisfying tug-snug sound that feels very official. The moment you slip your foot into the stirrup and swing over, something changes. You're no longer just a rider, you're a Mongol on a mission. The saddle shifts your weight, anchors your hips, and frames your knees like puzzle pieces in a centuries-old design. It's a far cry from Western saddles, smaller, lighter, and built for war and wind, not ceremony. Your uncle calls it the steppe throne. You spend the day learning how to ride in it properly. It's surprisingly stable, thanks to the high pommel and cantle, which cup you like, a seatbelt made of horse logic. The stirrups, short and solid, let you stand easily perfect for archery, or dramatically glaring at rival clans. You try both. You're also taught to take it off carefully, check the padding, and hang it with respect. Saddles weren't tossed aside like old boots. They were hung on wooden frames, brushed, and occasionally sung to. Yes, sung. Mongols believed a saddle could absorb a rider's energy, and singing could reset its spirit. You hum a half-made-up lullaby and hope your saddle isn't judging your pitch. Later that afternoon, the shaman visits. He's not as spooky as you expected. No rattles, no sudden thunderclaps. Just a quiet man with layers of fur, a walking staff, and a pouch of herbs that smells like dust and peppermint. He examines the saddle. Then he examines your horse. Then he examines you, which is awkward, because you're covered in dust and have a blade of grass stuck in your eyebrow. He nods once and gives you a charm to tie beneath the saddle, a tiny iron bell strung with faded ribbon. Keeps the bad spirits from riding along. He mutters, "You don't ask questions, you just nod and tie it on." Mongols took spiritual safety seriously, especially on horseback. The steppe was full of spirits, both helpful and not so helpful. Some lived in rivers, some in mountains, some in certain types of wind. A horse startled for no reason. Probably a spirit. A rider thrown on a clear day. Definitely a spirit. A saddle that squeaks could go either way. Historians still argue whether Mongol shamanic practices were formal religion or just structured superstition. But out here, that distinction doesn't matter. You respect the traditions because they work. Whether they're scientifically valid or not, they help people and horses live better together. That night, you polish the saddle's bone pieces with a rag dipped in sheep fat. It smells weird, but shines beautifully. You tie the last of your personal touches to it, a scrap of cloth your mother embroidered with your name, stitched in crooked little symbols. You don't tell anyone, but you tie it underneath, where only your horse can see. Before bed, you carry the saddle into the yurt, hang it on its frame, and whisper, "Good ride today." You don't expect an answer, but outside, your pony snorts. And you swear she winks. You wake up to a rare treat, no chores. At least, no new ones. Today is for grooming, repairing gear, and, as your aunt puts it, letting the horses remember who they are. You blink at her when she says it. She shrugs. They have moods, too. Let them reset. So you spend the morning walking among the herd, brushing manes, checking hooves, and marveling at just how many horses your family actually owns. 20-30. Not even close. A respectable Mongol herder might own 50 horses or more, and not just for wealth. Mongols didn't believe in a horse. They believed in a herd, a personal team of horses, each with its own specialty, attitude, and purpose. You don't just have a favorite, you have a rotation. Your cousin brags about his current set of 5, the morning horse, the long-distance trotter, the rain-day sulker, the flirtatious racehorse, and the one he only uses when he's mad at all the others. You start cataloging your own. Your usual pony is still your ride or die, but there's also the chubby brown mare who's surprisingly fast downhill, and the sleek gray gelding who refuses to be led but follows you without a lead rope if you sing, and that grumpy black stallion who seems to hate everyone except you when you're crying. Each horse has a personality more vivid than half the people in your village. Mongols paid attention to this. You don't ride a horse because it's pretty. You ride it because it fits the moment. There's even an old saying, a man with one horse walks half his life. In this world, horses are matched to purpose like outfits to occasion. Need to ride for hours. You choose your sturdiest, least dramatic gelding. Want to impress someone at a festival. Take the shiny show off with the high-stepping trot and flawless mane. Going into battle, you choose the one who doesn't flinch when the wind howls like ghosts. Mongol warriors weren't just mounted. They were equipped with multiple horses per rider. During campaigns, each soldier brought 3 to 5 horses, switching them out to keep them fresh. Some historians even credit this rotating horse strategy as a major reason for the Mongols' near-invincible speed. While their enemies' horses tired, Mongol riders kept galloping. You think about this while standing beside a shaggy chestnut who has, apparently, decided that your boot is a good spot to nap against. You gently nudge him off. He blinks at you with the slow surprise of a horse who's never been told no before. You start to keep track. Over the next week, you rotate between 6 horses. You test their temperaments. Try new saddle fits. Ride short and long routes. You learn that the tiny, fluffy mare is better in snow. That the tall bay likes to be brushed before riding. That the dun-colored one will roll dramatically every time you let her out to graze and will absolutely not be hurried afterward. It's like assembling a team or curating a personal collection of very opinionated, 4-legged friends. There's a fringe theory your uncle mentions after dinner one night. Some Mongols believed that each horse shared a part of your soul. Not in a mystical way, but in a practical, lived-in sense. The horses that carried you during love, during war, during fear, those horses took on parts of your experience. Rode with it, stored it, remembered it. You ask if that's why people sometimes cry when their horse dies. Your aunt doesn't answer, but her face softens. You fall asleep that night listing your horses in your head, not by color or breed. Those don't matter much here, but by feeling, this one helps me breathe. This one keeps secrets. This one forgave me when I fell. The next day, a traveling trader visits the camp. He offers cloth, knives, and a young horse. Sleek, nervous, a little too thin. Your grandmother inspects its hooves. Your cousin checks its teeth. You just make eye contact. Something passes between you. By sunset, the horse is yours. You don't name it. Mongols didn't often name their horses. Instead, they used nicknames based on quirks: ear twitcher, mud hater, sunset trot. You don't rush to label this one. You'll wait. Let it show you. You bring it a soft blanket and a chunk of dried apple. It sniffs the apple, ignores the blanket, and leans very slightly toward you. You smile. One more to the herd. One more piece of you, galloping under the wide, endless sky. Love is tricky on the steppe. Not because people don't fall in love, quite the opposite. It's just that expressing it usually involves sprinting horses, flirtatious insults, and several hundred pounds of dairy products. You're about to learn this firsthand at your first Nadam, the great summer festival where Mongols compete, trade, celebrate, and, sometimes, court. Your mother smooths your tunic and warns you. If someone races you, they either want to marry you or humiliate you, or both. You're not sure if she's joking. She doesn't smile. The Nadam is being held a day's ride away, and the entire clan is making the journey. Everyone's best horses are brushed, oiled, and decorated with colorful ribbons. Yours, of course, is unimpressed by the fuss, rolling her eyes as you attempt to braid her mane. Festivals like this are a major event in nomadic life. They aren't just for games, they're also about alliances, marriage arrangements, trade deals, and proving that your horse can outrun everyone else's while looking cooler doing it. When you arrive, it's chaos in the best way. Tents dot the horizon like giant mushrooms. Smoke wafts from cooking fires. Children dart between herds. And everywhere you look, horses, hundreds of them. Sleek racing colts, muscular battle-hardened mares, tiny foals whose legs still wobble. You barely finish securing your camp when someone challenges you to a Kurkun Mori Unalta, a courtship race. 2 riders, 1 goal if you win, they admit they like you. If you lose, you admit it first. You accept. Your pony perks up. She lives for this kind of drama. The race isn't long, just a sweeping loop around a grassy plain, but it's fast. Mongol ponies weren't bred for show, but for stamina, heart, and bursts of raw speed when needed. Yours bolts like a slingshot as soon as you kick off. The other rider, a smirking teenager with a braid that screams trouble, pulls ahead at first. You hold back, not out of strategy. Your stirrup just slipped, but it works out. As they falter at the turn, your pony glides past like a silk ribbon in wind. You don't just win, you dominate. As you skid to a stop, the crowd cheers. The other rider pulls up, laughing. Fine, they say. I'll braid your hair. Then? You're not entirely sure what that means, but your face is hot, and your aunt is definitely giggling. Beyond the races, Nadam includes horse games, wrestling, and archery, but the horse events are the soul of it all. Kids as young as 5 race without saddles. Elder herders ride side by side in ceremonial parades. Young men try to show off by doing ridiculous stunts, like standing on their saddles or grabbing objects from the ground at full gallop. You watch one of them try to impress a girl by scooping up a scarf. He falls. She claps anyway. Then come the dowries. Marriage negotiations at Nadam often involve horses. A suitor might offer several mares to a bride's family, not as a price, but as a gesture of stability. The better the horses, the better the impression. Love, here, is measured in hoofbeats. You overhear two older women arguing about a recent match. He only brought 2 mares, one says, and both of them were dappled. Everyone knows that's unlucky. The other shakes her head. She accepted, probably for the second saddle. Historians still argue whether the Mongols had formalized bride prices or if it was more about showing respect. The line between romantic gift and social currency was always a bit blurry. That night, as the fires crackle and fermented milk flows freely, people sing, you lean against your pony's flank, listening. She snores lightly. Horses are always included in these festivals. They aren't just transportation, they're part of the family. They eat well, rest better, and often receive decorative markings, swirls of colored chalk, braided tails, or bells tied to their manes. You watch a girl carefully paint a symbol on her colt's forehead, a charm for courage. Her grandmother says it keeps away jealousy from other riders. You don't question it. If someone's painting protection on their horse, they mean business. Your own pony lifts her head suddenly. A song's rhythm has changed, and she likes this one. You hum along, rubbing her shoulder. Someone offers you a drink. You decline, but they hand it over anyway. You sip, cough, and decide you were right to decline. At dawn, the festival begins to wind down. Horses are being loaded with gifts. Families are comparing trade hauls. Some people leave with better gear. Others leave with spouses. You leave with a slightly crooked braid someone tied in your hair during the night, and the smug knowledge that your pony is faster than at least one romantic rival. You ride back home a little taller in the saddle. Your herd welcomes you back without ceremony, but your pony does get a small extra helping of barley. She's earned it. So have you. You wake in the dark to the softest of sounds, a rustle of rope, a low huff, a snort barely louder than breath. It's not danger. It's company. 2 of the younger foals have wandered too close to your tent again, drawn by the smell of oats, or possibly the inexplicable allure of your laundry. One noses the flap. The other starts nibbling your boot. You sigh and rise slowly, pushing the flap aside just enough to meet their eyes. They pause, look at you, then each other, then back at you. And they stay. Because Mongol horses, especially the young ones, aren't just kept, they're connected, deeply, deliberately, and with quiet persistence. Mongol herders made sure their horses never ever had to feel truly alone. You guide the foals gently back toward the tether line, humming a tune your mother used when your older brother used to sleepwalk. Horses, like humans, understand tone more than words. Soothing sounds say more than shouts ever will. You tether them close not to a post, but to each other. This is the Mongol secret. No horse ever stands by itself for long. Tethered in pairs, rotated daily, the animals form bonds that outlast weather, fights, and even ownership. Separation is unnatural. Loneliness is dangerous. Horses are prey animals, yes, but in Mongol life, they're also social creatures, sensitive, expressive, and extremely tuned into the moods of those around them. A nervous horse can agitate the whole herd. A relaxed one, tethered to a friend, can calm its neighbor. You spend the day tending to just that, rotating the tether pairs. It's not random. Each horse has a personality, and pairing them is like matchmaking. Too much energy in one pairing. Chaos, too much passivity, stagnation. You aim for balance. You pair the bossy bay mare with the shy roan filly, the high-strung stallion with the mellow gelding who's unbothered by basically everything, including thunderstorms. Your cousin swears that tethered pairs sleep better, that they lie down more often when next to a familiar friend, that they twitch less in their dreams. One of them keeps watch, he says, and they trade off without speaking. You're not sure how scientific that is, but it feels true. You start to notice little things, how horses tethered together start mirroring each other's movements. They blink in sync, shift weight together, even graze in a lazy sort of choreography. You brush your pony beside her usual partner. They both lower their heads when you approach, as if to say, "We're good today. No drama." But it wasn't always this peaceful. You remember the black colt from 2 months ago, the one that panicked every time it was tethered alone, kicked, pulled, screamed with a voice that seemed too big for his body. Everyone assumed he was wild, broken, possibly beyond training. Then your grandmother stepped in. She tethered him to the oldest mare in the herd. Quiet, patient, nearly blind. The colt screamed the first hour, snorted and stomped the second. By the third, he was silent. Not calm, exactly, but curious. The mare didn't react. She simply stood, breathing slowly, ears at rest. By dusk, the colt was lying beside her. Mongols say there's always a horse that can calm another. You just have to find it. There's a fringe theory from modern animal behaviorists that Mongol horses exhibit higher than normal social bonding behaviors. Some say it's genetics, others say it's training. But the truth is likely much simpler. They're raised that way. Connection isn't optional, it's essential. You spend part of your afternoon braiding new lead ropes. They aren't just practical, they're symbolic. A well-made tether is soft, strong, flexible. It holds without hurting. You use wool from your own family's flock, twisting it with hair from a recently shed winter coat. It smells faintly of sun and sweat and grass. Your grandmother nods approvingly. "Always tie friends gently," she says, "but make sure the knot holds." You test a new pair, your usual pony and the newest arrival, the sleek bay with the curious nose. At first, there's tension. They shift, snort. The bay tries to step away. Your pony stands her ground. But you wait. You don't interfere. And by sunset, they're standing shoulder to shoulder, breathing together, watching the grass ripple in the wind. It's more than herd instinct. It's comfort. You settle near the fire that night with the scent of rope and saddle oil still on your hands. The air is cool. The stars are wide. Somewhere behind you, a foal nickers in its sleep, and its tether mate nickers back. You close your eyes, and you don't feel alone. At sunrise, you're already riding. No, not because of a storm, or wolves, or a love race this time. You're a courier today assigned by your uncle to deliver a small cloth bundle to a nearby camp. Not far, he said, maybe 10 miles, which, in Mongol terms, is roughly the distance you'd normally walk to sharpen a knife or chase down a goat. Still, this isn't about the delivery, it's about the ride. Mongol couriers weren't just messengers. They were legends in leather boots. The Yam postal system, first established under Genghis Khan, was one of the most sophisticated communication networks in the pre-modern world. It relied on a simple truth. Mongol horses, when rotated and lightly packed, could move faster than armies. You don't get to use the full postal system today. No fancy relay stations or silk-swathed scrolls. Just your saddlebag, your pony, and the wind. The bundle you carry might just be dried meat and a letter that reads, "We're still alive. Hope you are too," but it feels like the fate of an empire. Your pony senses it. She trots with purpose, ears sharp, hooves sure. You ride standing slightly in the stirrups, Mongol style, which reduces the impact on your mount and gives you a better view. It also gives you sore thighs, but that's the courier tax. The route is familiar but not dull. Across the steppe, even flat terrain is textured with ridges, dry creek beds, tufts of stubborn grass, and sudden holes dug by very confident marmots. You stay alert, one eye on the ground, one on the horizon, and always you listen to your horse. She adjusts speed without your asking. slows at rough patches, eases into gallops on smooth paths. You don't have to guide her much, just nudge, breathe, and trust. After about an hour, you switch horses. Not because yours is tired, she'd keep going if you asked, but because it's what Mongol couriers do. You meet another herder at a makeshift relay point, a pair of yurts, a family with 6 children, and a bright-eyed gelding chewing on a bootlace. They feed you salted curds and swap your mount without ceremony. You thank your first pony with a soft scratch behind the ears and mount the next. He's taller, springier, and smells like pine sap. You're off again. The yam system once stretched over 10,000 miles. It relied on fresh horses every 20-40 miles, with relay stations stocked with food, maps, and sometimes spare shoes. Riders could cover 200 miles a day without collapsing their horses. European envoys marveled at it. Marco Polo wrote about it. The horses made it work. You stop once to water the new gelding. He drinks like someone who forgot water existed. Then he dunks his nose entirely and sneezes into your shirt. Couriers are not glamorous. A dust devil dances in the distance. You pause to watch it. Your gelding paws the ground, eager to move. You tap his flank. Off you go. The delivery goes well, too well. In fact, the other camp is so pleased they give you a sack of fermented cheese in return. It smells like commitment and vaguely toasted feet. You strap it to the saddle and prepare to ride home. But now, the wind has picked up. Returning against the wind is harder, slower, and colder. You lean forward, squinting, lips chapped, your horse pressing into the gusts like a furry ship. He doesn't flinch, just keeps moving. Every few strides, he flicks his ears back, checking in. You hum low and steady. He hears you. Historians still argue whether the yam was as efficient as claimed. Some say the numbers were exaggerated by awestruck visitors. Others point to surviving station ruins, relay charts, even payroll records. But out here, efficiency isn't a number. It's a heartbeat shared between rider and horse. You reach the relay camp again and switch back to your original pony. She's rested, fed, and ready to gossip. You thank the family and gallop the last stretch home, the sack of cheese bumping cheerfully behind you. When you arrive, your uncle is dozing by the fire. You toss him the bundle. He doesn't open his eyes. "Took you long enough," he says, then smiles. You unsaddle your pony, brush her down, and whisper thanks. She nudges your chest with her forehead. A brief moment, a courier's end-of-shift handshake. Then you hang your saddle, wipe the dust from your sleeves, and eat half the cheese before anyone can stop you. The wind howls outside. Your pony naps, legs folded, tail twitching. And you think this wasn't just a delivery? It was proof. You're not just learning to ride. You're learning to move the world, one hoofbeat at a time. You are elbow deep in your horse's armpit. This was not how you envisioned your morning, but here you are, holding a brush made from goat hair, bent over at a ridiculous angle, scrubbing dried sweat and mud from your pony's underbelly, while she occasionally shifts her weight and sighs dramatically, like she has a dozen more important things to do. Welcome to Pony Spa Day. Every few weeks, Mongol herders devote extra time to grooming, not just brushing, but real, honest-to-saddleback pampering. You've washed your hands, you've gathered the good brushes, the bone combs, the soft rags, and now you're starting with the basics. First, the mane. It's a mess, full of knots, dust, and possibly an entire pine cone. Your cousin swears it wasn't his fault, but he's also the one who tied decorative feathers in last week for fun. You sit your pony down well, metaphorically, and start gently detangling, combing downward from the crest. She flicks her ears, leans into it, then tries to chew your sleeve. It's a compliment. The comb is made of bone whittled smooth, carved with little spirals. Mongols took their grooming tools seriously. A well-made comb was as important as a good saddle. Some were passed down through families, believed to carry the scent and strength of past horses. As you comb, you hum. It helps. Horses like rhythm. You've noticed that they relax faster when your motions match your song. It's not scientifically proven, but it's definitely pony approved. You move on to the hooves. You crouch, lift one leg at a time, and scrape away packed dirt with a small iron pick. Mongol horses are tough. They rarely need shoeing, but their hooves still gather pebbles, and snow, and mystery substances best not questioned. You work carefully. If your horse flinches, you pause. It's a conversation, not a chore. Your uncle once told you that hooves hold memories. You can tell where a horse has been, he said, if you know how to read the cracks. You look down at the tough crescent of horn under your pony's foot and imagine races, river crossings, long moonlit trots. Her story, engraved in keratin. Next, the coat. You brush in long strokes, following the line of the ribs. Dust lifts in small puffs. She flinches at one spot, ticklish, maybe, or bruised. You make a mental note to ease off that side for a few days. Your cousin joins you, grooming his own mare. She has a habit of leaning into him just hard enough to knock him over. She does it again today. He yelps. You laugh. Spa day is about more than cleanliness. It's maintenance, communication, trust. Mongols believed that grooming strengthened the bond between rider and horse. You weren't just cleaning, you were listening. You remember a fringe tidbit from a visiting trader. He claimed Mongols once used special massage techniques to stimulate blood flow in tired horses. Pressure points along the neck, shoulders, and withers. Your grandmother tried it once on a pony with a limp. The next day, it galloped. Coincidence? Maybe, but you try it today, just gentle pressure. Small circles, the way she showed you. Your pony closes her eyes. That's either relaxation or boredom, but you'll take it. As the sun climbs higher, the grooming turns social. Riders line up their horses, swap stories, swap brushes, swap exaggerated tales of whose pony kicked, what, and how far. You notice one older horse with a braid tied down its spine, decorative, but also functional. Keeps flies off. Smart. Another horse has painted symbols across its flanks in crushed charcoal and oil. Protection charms. You ask the owner about them, just in case. He says, "Last time I didn't. She threw me into a bush." Your cousin dares you to clean your pony's teeth. You do not. But you do gently wipe her eyes and nose with a damp cloth. Mongol horses, always outdoors, gather dust like champions. You clean the corners of her eyes, careful not to press. She exhales through her nose and doesn't complain. Small victories. By late afternoon, the herd is gleaming. Well, not gleaming. Mongol ponies don't shine the way pampered show horses do, but they look healthy. Their coats are smooth. Their eyes are bright. They smell faintly of grass and leather and home. You finish with a final stroke down your pony's spine and lean your forehead against her side. Her heart thumps steady, warm, present. You don't say anything. You don't need to. That night, you watch her roll happily in a patch of dirt and undo half your work. You laugh. That's part of it, too. Grooming isn't about results. It's about connection. Clean or dusty, she's still your pony. Still listening. Still carrying part of you. You're not quite sure what's happening, but it smells like sweat and glory. Across the field, two riders are shouting at each other while wrestling mid-saddle. One nearly falls, dangles upside down for a moment, then miraculously swings back into position, cheered on by a group of small children eating dried meat like popcorn. Your cousin grins. Finally, he says, the fun part of the year. It's time for horse games. Mongol horse games, often called Irian Morin Toglum, were more than entertainment. They were training, courtship, bonding, and bragging rights rolled into one dusty, glorious mess, and they weren't optional. If you had a horse and at least one functioning arm, you were expected to compete, or at least participate, or at least fall off in style. Today's lineup includes buzkashi, kukbar, archery at full gallop, and the perennial favorite, hang on to your saddle while someone tries to pull you off. You're signed up for one of them. You're just not sure which yet. The field is flat and wide. Riders warm up in circles, their ponies prancing, ears flicking, tails braided and ribboned. Your own mount is surprisingly calm, chewing on a rope with the resigned dignity of someone who knows she'll be sore tomorrow. The first event is goat polo. Yes, goat. Specifically, a headless goat carcass, don't ask where it came from, that must be scooped from the ground, carried at full speed, and dropped into a ring of rocks. It's dusty, fast, and aggressive. The goat gets dropped, then stolen, then flung. You have no idea what the score is. You're not sure anyone does. But the crowd loves it. Riders shout, horses spin. At one point, two stallions rear up and their riders slap each other's arms like dueling uncles at a wedding. Everyone claps. A grandmother waves a drumstick in approval. You don't play in that round. Your job is next archery at a gallop. You've been practicing, sort of, mostly in your head, but your pony knows the drill. You tighten your stirrups, check your quiver, and breathe. The target is a row of felt circles hanging from wooden frames. You must hit at least one. Ideally, not fall. You nudge your pony into motion. She leaps forward like she's late to a festival. Wind stings your eyes. You rise slightly in the saddle, draw an arrow, and release. Miss? Second shot better. The arrow grazes the edge. The third one hits, thudding into the center of the felt. The crowd lets out a polite cheer. You grin. Your pony tosses her head like finally, you're learning. Later comes ukai karva racing while grabbing flags from the ground. Small cloth markers are planted upright. Riders must snatch them at full speed without falling or dislocating anything important. It looks easy. It is not. Your cousin eats dirt on his first attempt. Gets up, shouts, "I meant to do that." Everyone applauds. Even the kids play games. They have miniature saddles, tiny bows, and ponies the size of Labradors. One little girl rides, standing on the saddle, arms out, shrieking with joy. Her pony trots calmly, used to this madness. Your aunt joins a special women's game, Catch the Man. It's exactly what it sounds like. Women chase men on horseback, and if caught, get to whip them lightly. The men pretend to be scared, some aren't pretending. There's a fringe detail from one of the older herders. He claims that Genghis Khan himself loved horse games, not just for fun, but as recruitment. If you could win at goat polo, he says, you could win a war. Historians still argue whether that's true, but the logic tracks. By late afternoon, everyone is sweaty, dusty, and high on competition. Even the horses seem livelier, tails high. Steps light. It's not just exercise, it's celebration. You end the day with Kukmori Unalda, a slow, balanced parade of horses, judged on grace, behavior, and how well they carry themselves. Your pony is a natural. She moves like silk in wind. You don't steer. You just exist. And she glides. People clap. You bow from the saddle. She flicks her tail like a queen acknowledging her court. As the sun dips, horses are brushed, watered, and fed generous portions of barley mash. Riders share fermented milk and brag about near wins and stylish losses. Someone sings. Someone else falls asleep mid-song. You sit by the fire, sore but proud. Your pony lies down nearby, a rare gesture of trust in horses, who usually sleep standing. You drape a blanket over her, and she doesn't even flinch. Horse games aren't just about skill. They're about joy. And today, you had plenty. There is pus. There is a smell. There is your cousin holding a steaming knife and grinning far too broadly for the situation. You, unfortunately, are holding the hoof. Welcome to Mongol horse medicine. Out here on the steppe, there are no veterinary hospitals, no white lab coats, and definitely no anesthesia. There is tradition, sharp observation, a generous application of herbal paste, and, if necessary, a red-hot iron blade. Your patient today is a gelding with an abscess in his front hoof. He's favoring it, limping slightly, and stomping less often than usual when annoyed. That alone is worrying. This particular horse is famously dramatic about flies. Now silent, suspiciously polite. Something's wrong. Your grandmother made the diagnosis by watching him walk in a circle, poking his fetlock 3 times, and declaring, "That hoof has secrets." And she was right. First, you clean the area. You scrub with a bristle brush, then swab with a mix of boiled pine needles and dried herb ash. It smells like forest and judgment. The horse doesn't enjoy it, but he doesn't kick, either. He seems to understand. Then comes the hot knife. It's not as terrifying as it sounds. It's worse. Your cousin heats a small blade over a dung fire. It's been sterilized the traditional way by being passed through fire, cooled in fermented mare's milk, and blessed with a quick spit and a whispered apology to the spirits. Mongol horse healing isn't just medical, it's spiritual. He lances the hoof with practiced speed. There's a hissing sound and a sharp squelch that nearly makes you drop the leg. The smell is indescribable. You gag. He grins. The gelding exhales deeply, as if to say, finally. Once the worst is drained, your aunt applies a poultice made from crushed onion, sheep fat, and something unidentifiable that was stored in a gourd labeled only with a frowning face. She wraps the hoof in felt strips and secures it with rope. You're told to check it daily, re-wrap it, and most importantly, sing to the horse while doing so. Why sing, you ask? Because you're not very gentle, she replies. Fair enough. Mongol veterinary knowledge is passed down orally. No textbooks, no manuals, just stories, apprenticeships, and hundreds of years of watching carefully. You learn what to look for: swollen hocks, twitching skin, sudden silence. Mongol horses rarely show pain openly, so subtlety is everything. You learn about wind sickness, a catch-all term for mysterious symptoms thought to be caused by bad air or spirits. You treat it with a mix of cedar ash and willow bark, tied in a pouch under the saddle. You learn how to reduce swelling with mud from a specific riverbank and how to test hydration by pulling on the horse's lip. If it flops back, slowly. Dehydrated, if it snaps like a wet towel, you're fine. You also learn, much to your horror, that horses sometimes get colic and that the traditional solution involves lifting the horse's tail and, well, let's say the answer is more hands-on than you'd hoped. Mongol herders pride themselves on preventing illness before it starts. They rotate grazing areas, balance feed, brush regularly, and ride often enough to keep blood flowing, but not enough to cause strain. It's a balance, a partnership. Your own pony gets a checkup too, not because she's sick, but because she deserves the same attention as the gelding. You check her teeth, yellowed but healthy, her hooves strong, her ears responsive. You even feel along her back for sore spots, just as your grandmother taught you. She stands still through it all, occasionally flicking her tail against your shoulder when you take too long. That night, your grandfather tells a story about a battle horse who survived an arrow to the leg, limped for 2 months, and then came back stronger. We treated him with honey, ash, and flattery. He says, mostly flattery. You believe it. There's a fringe claim among steppe families that horses respond better to medicine when it's applied with positive emotion. Not just calmness, but affection, encouragement, care. You've never seen science confirm it, But you've also never seen a Mongol horse comforted by indifference. Before bed, you check on the gelding again. He lifts his head when you approach. You unwrap the hoof, reapply the paste, and whisper a few lines of a song you half remember. He leans into your hand. You think that's approval? Mongol medicine is messy, earthy, improvised, but it works. And as you fall asleep, hands still smelling faintly of herbs and hoof, you feel something odd. Not disgust, not exhaustion. Pride. You are crouched in a field, holding a stick, inspecting a warm pile of horse poop. This is not the glamorous part of Mongol life, but it is absolutely one of the most essential. Because if you really want to know how your horse is doing, how all the horses are doing, you don't ask a vet. You don't consult a scroll, you check the droppings. Mongol herders have been reading manure like tea leaves for centuries. Color, shape, texture, temperature. It all tells a story. You jab gently. It holds its shape. Good. Not too dry. Not too wet. You give it a small sniff. You're not proud of it, but you're thorough. Your uncle nods from behind you. Smells like last night's grazing. The grass near the river. He gestures to the left. They'll need salt soon. You're learning the art of dung diagnosis. Healthy horse dung is compact, moist but not mushy, and often faintly green. If it's too dark, they've had too much grain. Too light, not enough variety. If it's loose, they're stressed or sick. If it's hard pellets, you may be looking at early dehydration. One of the stallions, the moody one with a tendency to sulk in the rain, has started producing odd, stringy dung. Your aunt blames the new patch of yellow grass the herd wandered into. Pull them back tomorrow, she says, or we'll have 5 cases of wind belly by Wednesday. You nod solemnly, trying not to laugh, because wind belly sounds ridiculous. Until your horse gets it, then it's 3 days of gas, bloating, and very concerned facial expressions. Poop isn't just about health, it's also weather. A sudden change in droppings across the herd might mean an approaching storm. They always go soft when the pressure drops, your grandmother says, completely serious, even before the clouds show up. You're skeptical, then it happens. Again and again. Now you watch the ground almost as often as the sky. There's a fringe belief among older herders that some horses can intentionally alter their droppings to communicate discomfort. Not pain, exactly, but complaint, like passive-aggressive notes. But in pellet form, you're not sure you believe it. Until the day your cousin forgets to brush his gelding before a long ride. And the next morning, that gelding leaves a perfectly shaped poop directly on his sleeping mat. Coincidence, you think not? The herd's bathroom habits also affect camp life. Dung is fuel here, dried, stacked, and burned in fires that cook your food and heat your yurt. You help collect it in the afternoons, flipping the fresh piles with a flat shovel and setting them to dry in tidy rows. The smell? Earthy. Yes, but once dried, it's surprisingly neutral, warm, even comforting. You remember the first time you gathered dung. You were 5. You gagged dramatically and insisted you were more of a sky person. Now, you carry bundles like it's firewood, because it is firewood. You also learn to track horses by their droppings. A cold, scattered pile means a wandering group passed hours ago. A still warm cluster says they're close. Mongol scouts could track an entire army's movement by the age, placement, and pattern of manure. Historians still argue whether this skill was exaggerated by travelers trying to make the Mongols sound mystical. But the truth? It's real. You watch your grandfather follow a trail of droppings like a breadcrumb map to recover a runaway colt. He doesn't say a word, just squats, sniffs, nods, and walks on. Back at camp, your pony relieves herself a respectful distance from the yurts. You wait, then approach, check, healthy. You flick some sand over it and move on. Your cousin tells you about a horse that refused to go anywhere except one specific corner of the field. She was very private, he says, also very judgmental. You both laugh. Then you check another pile. Because knowing your horse means knowing everything about them, including what they leave behind. It's not glamorous. It's not poetic. But it is, somehow, reassuring. You squat by another warm pile as the wind picks up, smelling faintly of grass, salt, and horses. You exhale. And you nod. Today, a horse dies. Not yours, not one you rode recently, but one you knew, one that had trotted alongside your favorite mare for years, shared grazing spots, stood still while foals napped against her side. She was old, white-maned, heavy-lidded, the kind of horse that never startled, even when a storm cracked open the horizon. You find her lying in the grass, already still. You stand there for a long moment, just breathing, watching. There is no panic, no wailing, just a slow gathering of people and silence. Mongols knew that horses didn't live forever, but when they passed, it mattered, deeply. Your grandfather is the first to speak. She was a good listener, he says. Not a joke, just a quiet truth. Others nod. Your grandmother kneels, brushing the mane back into place. Someone brings water. Someone else lights incense. You begin preparing a carise, a horse burial. Not every horse gets one, but this one does. She was old, loyal, calm. She helped raise 3 generations of riders. She deserves a proper goodbye. You dig a shallow pit, lining it with river stones and dry grass. You don't bury her deeply, not the Mongol way. Instead, you build a small mound, raise a marker stone, and tuck small objects beneath her saddle blanket, a braid of wool, a carved bone, a handful of oats. Your aunt lights a stick of juniper and circles the body 3 times. The smoke curls, then drifts west. A good sign, apparently. Mongol horse funerals aren't about spectacle. They're about presence. You show up. You bear witness. You say thank you. Some herders believe the spirits of good horses travel on with the wind, that they return in foals, that they stay in the land, in the herd, in the breathing of your next pony when she stops suddenly to watch something only she can see. You sing, just a little, one verse of an old grazing song. It wasn't written for mourning, but today it works. Your cousin ties a thread around the horse's old halter and hangs it from a tree nearby. A reminder, a tribute, a whisper. Historians still argue about the true role of horse burials in Mongol society. Were they religious rites? Status symbols? Practical? There's evidence that some noble horses were buried with armor, ornate saddles, even food bowls. Others were simply laid in the grass, their bodies left to nourish the land that nourished them. Either way, the symbolism remains. To honor a horse is to honor a life lived in motion, in partnership, in loyalty. Later, you return to the herd. It feels quieter, even though no one speaks. Horses notice absence. They gather closer. Some call softly. One of the foals wanders near the burial site and stands beside the stone for a while. No one tells her to move. You brush your own pony more gently that night. She seems to understand. She lowers her head and presses it into your chest for a breath. A pause. You don't cry, but your throat is tight. At dinner, someone tells a story about the old mare. How she once stopped mid-race to let a nervous foal catch up. How she stood still during a lightning storm while every other horse scattered. How she looked insulted when someone tried to put a flower in her mane. She liked berries, someone says. She hated mud, says another. She hated you, says your cousin. Everyone laughs. Then silence again. Just for a moment. You fall asleep thinking about that white mane, the way it caught the sun, The way her tail flicked, always a half-second before your pony's. The way she walked beside you like you were worth trusting. And in your dream, she's running. Ears forward, wind behind her. Not gone, just ahead. The scissors are sharp, the air is still, your fingers are sweating slightly, even though it's not hot. Today, you're giving your horse a haircut. Not for vanity, not for comfort, for status. You're clipping the main knot off, just into a new shape, a careful trim with meaning, history, and, frankly, an unspoken risk of social disaster if you get it wrong. Mongol horses didn't wear armor or blankets with crests and embroidery. But their manes. Their manes told stories. A horse with a cropped crest might belong to a noble family. A long, uncut mane could mean it was wild, untamed, or intentionally rebellious. And a specific braid pattern that could mean anything from this horse is being trained to please "Don't steal me." I bite. You tug the mane into a tight line, comb it with your bone tool, and look to your grandmother. She nods once. You begin snipping. This particular style is called a war braid. Just one side clipped short, the other left long, with a small section wrapped in red string. It's traditionally worn by the lead horse of a caravan or one ridden into ceremonial events. Not every horse gets one. But today, yours does. You've been training together for nearly 2 years. She knows your voice, your mood, your silences. She trusts you enough to lie down near you. And last week, she led the herd away from a sudden lightning storm without being asked. You don't need approval, but you feel proud. You clip carefully, shaping the mane into a gentle arc. Not too severe, not too casual. The red string you tie near her ear flicks lightly in the breeze. She doesn't flinch. In fact, she looks smug. Your cousin walks past and squints. War braid, he says. Bit dramatic, don't you think? You raise an eyebrow, says the boy who gave his gelding bangs last spring. He walks away. Mongols used haircuts to signal everything from ownership to mourning. When a horse's rider died, their mane might be left uncut for a year as a sign of respect. Conversely, cutting a horse's mane short could mark it for religious offerings, for gifting, or for joining a diplomatic envoy. You learn that trimming hair isn't just aesthetics, it's communication. There's a fringe tale told by older herders about a horse whose clipped mane spelled out a secret message. Each angle represented a clan symbol. The horse was sent across enemy lines, delivering its message silently, riding like an innocent gift. When the code was discovered, a truce was brokered, or so the story goes. Historians still argue whether that was a real tactic or just a clever bedtime story, but every time you see your horse's mane, you imagine what could it say. Later, you help your uncle clip the fetlocks of another pony, removing excess hair from the ankles to keep mud from clumping. She kicks twice, then settles, probably realizing she looks better this way. You start noticing manes everywhere. The filly with a zigzag braid. The stallion whose short trim means don't touch, recently gelded. The old mare with 2 small twists near her ears, her owner's mark. Horses here are less about brands and more about expression. Your grandmother shows you an old relic, a horsehair bracelet, braided tightly, dyed black and white. From my first mare, she says. We trimmed her mane before the long ride west, took some with me, tied it around my wrist, carried her with me. You feel the weight of that, more than jewelry. It's memory, woven into something wearable. That night, your horse's silhouette is different. The clipped side of her neck shines faintly in the firelight. The braid swings slightly when she tosses her head. She looks taller. She looks aware of herself. You walk over, scratch her shoulder. She exhales deeply and leans into your chest. Hair grows back. But moments like this, you hope they don't fade too fast. The storm breaks just before dawn. Rain hits the yurt like tossed gravel, sharp and sudden. You jolt awake, blanket half-tangled, your ears already tuning to the sounds outside. Thunder rolls over the steppe. The herd is restless. You stumble into your boots and grab your coat. No time for tying, just get out there. The wind slaps your face the moment you step outside, and your eyes sting. But you hear it over everything. The heavy, rhythmic thuds of hooves in wet earth, the huffing of breath, the low, panicked nickering of a young mare. Your pony is already moving. She gallops toward the edge of the herd, her mane soaked, her body slicing through the downpour like it's nothing. You follow as fast as you can, teeth clenched, breath ragged. You don't need to call out. She knows what to do. This is not her first storm. The rain has scattered part of the herd. The younger horses have broken away, slipping down a shallow ravine where the ground is turning slick and the visibility is garbage. Lightning cracks jagged, theatrical. One of the colts stumbles. A foal bleats. Your pony dives in. Not wildly, not recklessly. She weaves through the chaos like a thread through fabric, pressing her flank gently against the panicking colt, guiding it uphill, away from the worst of the mud. You slide down beside her, nearly fall, but she steadies you with one firm nudge. The two of you, just you and this half-wet, fully determined creature, work in tandem. You whistle low, she pivots, you raise your hand, she angles left, the foal follows. You've seen battle horses in paintings, armored and gleaming, posed under banners. But here, soaked, snarling at the wind, and laser-focused on saving her own kind, this is what a real battle horse looks like. You've never loved her more. Mongol horses weren't just bred for speed. They were bred for stamina, for intelligence, for nerve. They were trained to keep going under arrow fire, across frozen rivers, through wind and storm. They didn't break. They bent. They adapted. Your pony rounds up two more stragglers. You see another herder emerge from the mist, a shadow leading three more. Together, you push the herd back toward camp. Slowly, carefully. The storm is already weakening, but the ground is soup, and every step feels like dragging your feet through memory. Back at the camp, the horses are trembling but safe. Your grandmother lights incense. Your uncle checks for injuries. You peel off your coat, fingers stiff, and grab a brush. Wet horses get cold fast. You rub down your pony, working through the slick mat of hair, watching her flinch and then relax. Her breath slows. You both made it. And she didn't just carry you, she led. Later, your grandfather tells a story about his horse during the winter of the Great Freeze. We were hungry, frozen, lost, he says. She found our way back by following the smell of smoke on the wind. Saved me. I gave her the warmest blanket for the rest of her life. You believe him. There's a fringe debate among historians about just how battle-ready Mongol horses were. Could they truly operate without reins? Could they really distinguish between commands in the chaos of war? You don't care. Because today, you didn't command your horse. You partnered. And that was enough. That night, you and your pony sleep near each other, curled in opposite crescents, steam rising from her flank. The storm is gone. The wind is calmer. A few stars sneak through the thinning clouds. She opens one eye, just a flicker. You reach out and touch her neck, warm and damp. Good job, you whisper. She exhales softly, then sleeps. You whistle, once. Your horse stops walking. You whistle twice. She turns her head just a glance, but it's enough. She's listening. And now comes the third whistle, short, sharp, low-pitched. It's not a command, it's a question. Do we keep going? Is this the path? Are we sure? She answers not with sound, but with movement, one slow step forward, then another. Her ears twitch toward the left. Not alarmed? Not nervous? Just aware? Mongol horses were never mute beasts of burden. They were decision makers, trusted collaborators. Some herders claimed their best horses could choose the correct route when paths split, sense enemies before they approached, and even avoid unsafe bridges or fords without needing a tug on the reins. You didn't order your horse where to go. You asked, suggested, waited. She always knew more than you did. There's a certain tone you can use more hum than word that tells your horse you're unsure. She picks up the slack. There's a particular kind of breath you make when you're scared. She hears it and adjusts. Today, you're riding toward an unfamiliar valley. There was a reported bog down south, and the herders want to scout the safer route for next week's move. You volunteered because you trust your horse. As you reach a fork in the path, one trail's stony, the other grassy. She hesitates, ears flicking, one hoof lifted, then lowered. You wait. She leans toward the stones. You go with it. Half an hour later, you pass a patch of flattened grass where another horse recently stumbled and recovered deep hoof prints, scattered dirt. You nod. She chose right. Some of the older herders talk about whinny intelligence, the belief that certain horses, when trained from birth, develop a sense of spatial memory, so strong they can lead others home from hundreds of miles away. They call it mind pathing, the idea that a horse can remember trails, smells, wind patterns, danger signs. Historians still argue whether this is poetic exaggeration or actual observed behavior. But the Mongols didn't bother arguing. They knew. There were even reports whispered more than recorded of horses refusing to take certain paths on the eve of battle. Roads that would have led into ambushes. Hills that were later found to be lined with traps. No proof, of course, but plenty of riders turned back that day. You remember a story your grandmother once told. My horse, she said, used to stop walking if I lied. You laughed. Lied about what? About being fine, she said. She could tell. You didn't laugh that time. You and your pony ride on. The grass gives way to packed dirt. Birds wheel overhead, silent but watching. Your horse slows, then stops. A rabbit scurries across the path. Your horse doesn't flinch. She just waits, then continues. That's how it always felt, like she knew what should happen. Not magically, not telepathically, but through experience, patience, and more observation than most humans ever manage. Some say Mongol horses were trained in dreams. You think they just listened better. Back at camp, you tie her near her usual companion, another older mare, calm and even-tempered. They nuzzle briefly, a greeting, a check-in, then they eat. You sit by the fire, thinking about today's ride, about the 3 whistles, about the moment she paused at the fork and you let her decide. That wasn't obedience. That was trust. And that's the core of it, isn't it? Your horse doesn't carry you because you're strong. She carries you because you ask nicely, because you listen when she speaks with her hooves and ears and the curve of her back. Because some horses, when you let them, will guide you home. You're rich now. At least by steppe standards. You don't have coins, you don't have gold, you don't even have a new tunic, but you have horses. And that, out here, is everything. You count them slowly, in your head, as the herd moves across the sunlit plain. 15, no, 16, 17 if you count the stubborn colt who refuses to admit he belongs to anyone but follows you like a shadow anyway. Each tail, a coin, each mane, a bond note, each hoofbeat, interest earned. In Mongol society, wealth wasn't measured in material things, it was counted in living, breathing animals. A good horse could mean survival, mobility, social respect, a herd that was legacy. Your grandfather once said, A man with 100 horses isn't rich because of what he owns. He's rich because of how far he can go. You didn't get it then, you do now. Every morning, you check the herd. You're learning the difference between randomly wandering and intentionally plotting mischief. You rotate grazing fields. You mark which foals are growing faster than others. And you start keeping a tally stick, scratched lines on bone. 1 per horse. It's satisfying. Your cousin teases you for being the banker now, but it's not a joke. Mongol families often traded, gifted, or borrowed horses instead of using currency. Weddings, debts, apologies, they were all settled in hoofbeats. You remember when your uncle returned from a trip with 3 new mares? He didn't bring food or tools, just the horses. They'll become all those things, he said. Eventually. You believed him. There's even a tradition called Morin Zeal the horse loan. A herder with extra animals might lend one to a family in need. Not as a handout, but as a partnership. The borrower would feed, groom, and work the horse as their own. Then return it, sometimes with a foal as thanks. It was a social glue, lending without losing, giving without emptiness. You tried it once. A neighbor lost 2 ponies in a storm. You offered one of yours a strong, sensible mare with a patient streak. A week later, you saw her grazing happily beside their camp, watching their children play. And when she returned a month later, she came with a new saddle blanket and a belly just slightly rounder than before. Historians still debate whether Mongol wealth systems were truly non-monetary or simply alternative. But you know this, no one here would trade 5 horses for a sack of coins, not even if the coins were shiny. Because a horse is used, beauty, story, status, coins are coins. You even start naming them. Not formally, Mongols rarely gave permanent names, but with nicknames. Sniffer, Sun Eater, Sleeps Too Deep. Your favorite is Half-Ear, a gray gelding who lost part of his ear in a fencing accident and now holds it tilted forever like a permanent shrug. Your pony, of course, doesn't get a nickname. She's beyond that now. She's just yours. You build a small wooden marker and scratch in the number of your herd. 17. Then you scratch a small star beside it, just because. That night, as you sit with your aunt braiding lead ropes, she tells you a story about a man who tried to fake his horse wealth, painted spots on goats, posed near other people's herds. Did it work, you ask? No, she says, the goats trampled him. Fair? There's a quiet moment. Then she adds, true wealth isn't what you own. It's what follows you willingly. You think about that long after the fire dies. 17 horses. 17 chances to go anywhere. And each of them follows you when you whistle. That's not just wealth. That's trust multiplied. The inspectors arrive at dawn. Not with swords, not with threats, but with scrolls, ink brushes, and an uncanny ability to spot a hidden mare behind a hill at 200 meters. You groan softly and reach for your coat. It's tax season. Yes, even out here in the middle of the wind-whipped steppe, under the sky so wide it looks like it could swallow the earth, someone, somewhere, still wants to count your horses. 2 men ride into camp wearing thick robes marked with the insignia of the Khan's census authority. Their horses are sleek, their boots clean, and their expressions politely uninterested. They are not here to make friends. They are here to make tallies. Moran Tatvar, your uncle mutters, spitting into the grass. Horse taxes. Mongol Khans, even in the early days, understood something fundamental: horses were the economy. So to manage that economy, they had to be counted, taxed, and occasionally borrowed by the state. You line up the herd. The inspectors begin their work, one reading aloud, the other scribbling in a tiny book. 3 gray mares, 2 black geldings, One dun foal with crooked ears. They speak like shopkeepers, not herders. It's strange to hear your ponies described so flatly. You consider correcting them. You don't. Taxes, in Mongol tradition, weren't always about payment. Sometimes it was tribute, sometimes it was resource management, and sometimes it was preparation for military campaigns. If the state needed horses, they could requisition them, temporarily, in theory. Practically, if your horse was strong, fast, and not too sentimental, it might just never come back. There's an old joke: lend a horse to the Khan, and you'll see it again only if he loses. You keep a careful eye as they tally your favorites. Your pony is measured height, weight, age. They don't mark her for state use. You exhale, she flicks her tail at the inspector's face, which you feel is justified. One of your neighbor's horses is marked, a tall bay gelding with clean hooves and too much charisma. The inspector ties a ribbon to its halter, red string. It means subject to requisition. The family doesn't protest, not openly, but the mother sends her youngest child to stand beside the horse all day, just standing, holding its mane. There's also something called imperial loaning. If your herd grows too large, or if you owe favors, you may be asked to provide support horses to a noble family or royal envoy. They're not stolen, they're borrowed, cared for, returned fat, trained, and well-mannered. In theory, you once saw a horse return from an imperial posting with a saddle made of velvet. It refused to eat anything but cooked oats for a week. Adjusted, your uncle said, to noble tastes. There's a fringe story told around the fire. A herder once painted his horse to look sickly to avoid requisition. The inspectors saw through it instantly and took 2 horses out of spite. Moral of the story: don't mess with the Khan's bureaucracy. The inspection ends with a list: 1 scroll of horses eligible for taxes, 1 for potential requisition, each name not written in ink, but in hair color, hoof shape, ear tilt, horses described like trading cards. The inspectors leave as quietly as they came. You walk your pony back to her usual grazing spot, untie the temporary tag from her bridle, and toss it into the fire. Your cousin joins you. How many did they take? 3, you say? Could have been worse. You both sit for a while, watching the horses fan out across the field. The ones taken will ride for the Khan's needs couriers, parade mounts, pack carriers. They won't suffer, but they will be missed. You think again about the strange relationship Mongols had with statehood, so decentralized, yet so organized, so free-roaming, yet so tightly counted. It wasn't contradiction, it was survival. Historians still argue whether the Mongol taxation system was oppressive or efficient, but here you feel its presence not as punishment, but as participation. Your herd is not just yours, it's part of something larger. That night, you run your fingers through your pony's mane. Don't worry, you whisper. They'd have to fight me first. She snorts, then rests her head on your shoulder. It's the cold that wakes you. Not the biting wind, not the crunch of frost underfoot, but the silence, the kind of silence that feels too quiet. You sit up slowly, wrapped in your blanket, and realize the horses aren't talking. No soft knickers, no tail swishes, no distant thuds of hooves. You throw on your coat and step into the pre-dawn dark. The sky glows faintly gray, like a lid of wet stone. The frost bites your nostrils, but you're already running toward the herd, toward the place you tied your pony last night. And she's there, right where you left her, pressed close to her usual grazing partner, head lowered, eyes half closed, but not asleep, just hibernating. Because Mongols knew something that took you a while to learn: when the cold comes, horses are better than fire. Not to cook with, but to sleep beside. Last night, the temperature dropped suddenly. The felt of your yurt was good, but not great. The wind howled through every stitch, but the horses, they simply stood closer together and kept each other warm. Some of the foals are tucked beneath their mothers' bellies. Others lean against yearlings. One old stallion is flanked on both sides by younger mares. Nobody likes him, but he's warm, and that's all that matters right now. You walk among them quietly. Your boots crunch. No one moves. Your pony lifts her head just enough to nuzzle your shoulder. Her breath fogs the air between you like a secret being shared. Mongol horses are built for this. Their winter coats are thick, their fat stores high, and their instincts sharp. But they also need one another. Herd warmth isn't optional, it's survival. You find a spot and sit down, pressing your back to your pony's side. She shifts slightly, not away, just enough to make space. You lean into her. The warmth is immediate, surprising, like a stove that breathes. You curl your arms around your knees and exhale. And then you fall asleep. Only for a few minutes. But when you wake again, the world feels softer. The frost hasn't left, but the sun is rising, and the horses are stirring. Your cousin appears with a blanket and a smirk. "Romantic night?" he asks. You say nothing, but you stay where you are. This isn't the first time someone slept beside their horse. Mongol herders have done it for centuries. During storms, on long treks, in battle camps, horses weren't just transport. They were sleeping bags, mood regulators, dream companions. You once heard a herder say that horses sleep in a way that guards your thoughts. They listen to your breathing, he said, and keep the nightmares away. There's a fringe belief whispered, not often written, that if a rider dies far from home, and their horse lies beside the body through the night, the spirit of the rider stays warm long enough to travel back. You're not sure how literal that is, but it feels true enough. As the sun climbs, the frost fades. The horses begin to move slowly at first. Then, with more energy, one of the foals bolts for no reason. Another tries to climb on its mother's back. She does not approve. You brush your pony gently. Her coat is damp where you slept. You mutter an apology. She flicks her ears and walks toward the watering trough like you no longer exist, which is fair. Later, your grandmother tells you how, in her youth, she once rode for 3 days with no tent, just her horse, a rolled blanket, and flint. I tied her reins to my wrist, she says. When she stopped walking, I knew it was time to sleep. Did she ever stop, you ask? She smiles. Once, at a cliff, just in time. Historians still debate how Mongols navigated such harsh conditions with so little protection. Some chalk it up to clever engineering, others credit hardened bodies. But ask any herder, and they'll tell you the secret was warmth, shared, carried, trusted. You don't bring this up in any scholarly conversation. But you do sleep next to your pony again that night. Just to be sure, you are galloping across the steppe with a sack of cheese tied to your saddle and a half-frozen message tucked inside your coat. You've been riding since just after sunrise, stopping only once to swap horses at a friendly camp marked by 2 crossed sticks and a blackened pot hanging from a tree, one of the many quiet signposts of the Urtu, the legendary Mongol relay system. This isn't your first courier run, but it's your longest. And for the first time, you're fully part of the system the Mongols once used to hold the largest land empire in history together. Welcome to the express mail service of the 13th century. The Yam, sometimes called the Arrow Messenger Network, was Genghis Khan's brainchild. It functioned like a postal service, but with no roads, no stamps, and absolutely no patience for delays. Instead, it relied on horses, lots of them, fresh, fast, and positioned along the empire's arteries like beating hearts. Today, you're pretending to be part of that glorious machine. Your route is modest, maybe 70 kilometers total, but the mechanics are the same: ride hard, switch horses, deliver the goods. Try not to spill the cheese. Your first leg is fast. You crouch low over your pony's neck, letting the wind roll over your back. The message you're carrying isn't imperial. It's a birthday invitation, scrawled on birch bark and tied with red thread. But it feels important. You guard it like a secret. Your first swap point is smooth an elderly herder with 2 prepared mounts and a bowl of something steaming. You pause just long enough to gulp the broth probably made from something with hooves, mount up, and go. Mongol relay stations once operated every 20 to 40 kilometers. Riders had the right to requisition fresh horses, food, and shelter from any camp bearing the Khan's mark, and they had better make it count. A messenger who was late tolerated, a messenger who lost a horse questionable, a messenger who lost the message vanished from history. There's a fringe story told around campfires. One courier was said to have tied his message to his own arm with sinew. When his horse stumbled and broke his leg, he crawled the last 10 miles on one elbow and delivered the letter with a bloody grin. Probably apocryphal, possibly not. You feel dramatic just thinking about it. Your second mount is a little wild bay mare with a tendency to toss her head and bite anything wearing a scarf. But she's fast, and when she runs, it feels like you're skating on glass. The wind dries your mouth, but you don't stop. Your route takes you past old bone stone markers, abandoned wells, half-collapsed yurts, swallowed by the earth. This land remembers the network. You ride past a carved wooden post and wonder if it once held a direction sign. 2 days to Karakoram, fresh tea at the next fire. By midday, the wind picks up and the air grows sharp. You wrap a scarf around your face, blink through the sting, and nudge your mare forward. She doesn't need urging. She sees the final relay station on the rise and accelerates. You deliver the letter with a small bow. The recipient, a woman in a blue robe with laughing eyes, opens it, reads, and grins. "They remembered," she says. You grin too, because even though you're not technically working for the Khan's courier system, even though this wasn't an empire-breaking announcement, you did it. You galloped, swapped horses, faced wind and time and unpredictable saddle cheese, and you made it. Your return trip is slower. You ride at a trot now, letting the mare cool, letting yourself breathe. You watch the sky change color. The sun turns gold, then orange, then the first brush of evening blue settles across the grass. You imagine the old riders, how many hoofbeats it took to hold an empire together, how much trust was placed in ponies and parchment, how many whispered messages were passed hand to hand, camp to camp, hooves never stopping, eyes always forward. Historians marvel at how fast the Mongol system was. Some records say it took just 2 weeks for a message to travel from Mongolia to the Caspian Sea. Others are skeptical, but one thing is certain: it worked. Because it was built not on wheels or wagons, but on legs and lungs, hooves and trust. You arrive home after dark, tired but content. Your pony nickers from the edge of the herd. You rub her nose. She snorts like she's unimpressed, but you both know what you did. You didn't just ride. You became part of something ancient. And all it took was one message and a dozen loyal hooves. The grass is dry, the sky is low, and there's not much left in your pouch except a few wrinkled apples and a broken piece of biscuit. It's a lean season. Famine isn't sudden here, not like a raid, or a storm, or a missing foal. It creeps in quietly. 1 dry week becomes 2. The grass turns yellow. The herd grazes farther and farther from camp, and their ribs begin to whisper under their coats. You've seen this before, but it doesn't get easier. Today, you're walking with the herd instead of riding, partly to conserve their energy, partly because it feels wrong to be above them when they're this thin. You carry a sack of spare feed, a mix of dried nettles, roots, and something your aunt insists is edible. Your pony looks at it, then at you, then sighs. You eat half the apple yourself, then cut the rest into slices and share it with her. She takes it gently, lips brushing your fingers. You swear she chews slower than usual, savoring. During hard times, Mongol herders do everything they can to keep their horses alive. They rotate pastures more often. They soak dried feed in warm water to make it easier to digest. They whisper to the foals like they're children. And when there's only enough food for one, the horses get it first. Because out here, if your horse doesn't make it, you won't either. You've started skipping second meals. It's not martyrdom, it's math. You graze the herd in wide circles, letting them seek out any patch of surviving green. Your pony finds one. She doesn't call the others. She just eats, quietly, like someone sneaking into a forgotten pantry. Your cousin jokes less lately. Even he walks now. His favorite gelding, too fast to catch, has been moved to emergency rations. You catch him plaiting the horse's mane with a piece of blue thread. Keeps the bad luck off, he says, not looking at you. Some say the horses understand. They start grouping tighter, standing closer at night. They graze shoulder to shoulder, chewing in the same rhythm, like monks at a silent retreat. And when the water trough gets low, the older horses step back to let the young ones drink first. You remember a story your grandmother once told. During a terrible drought, a mare refused to drink for 2 days so her foal could have her share. She didn't survive. The foal did, grew into a strong stallion, led the herd for 15 years, knew every trick, every trail, never once let a foal stand at the back of the line. Some horses, she said, become stories? There's a fringe belief among the herders that famine season is when horses learn who they truly are. Not when they're fed and fast and winning races, but when they're thin, sore, and still willing to carry you. You believe it. Because today, as you haul another bucket of meltwater from the creek 2 kilometers uphill, on foot, your pony follows. She doesn't drink until you sit down. She stands close, blocking the wind. You didn't teach her that. She just knows. And when the wind rises, carrying dust and silence, she leans into you, not to be held, but to hold you. You whisper, soon. She doesn't answer, but she doesn't move either. Later, the elders gather to plan. Which herds will be moved? Which camps will be abandoned for a while? Which horses will be tethered closer to the yurts for monitoring? You sit nearby, taking mental notes. Every horse has a file in your head, now weight, habits, favorites, fears. At night, the foals cry softly. Their mothers hum. Your pony finds her spot and lies down rare. Vulnerable, you curl beside her, your blanket tucked between her ribs and your back. She breathes. You match it. It's not comfortable. It's not warm. But it's enough. Tomorrow, maybe it'll rain. Or the grass will return. Or maybe not. But tonight, you're not alone. Because hunger can empty a belly, but not a bond. You're singing again. Not loudly, not beautifully, just quietly, under your breath, as you brush your pony's shoulder with a twist of wool and whisper stiff fingers. The melody barely carries over the sound of wind through brittle grass. But that's not the point. The point is rhythm, comfort, habit. Because when the world tightens, Mongols don't shout at the wind. They hum, and so do you. Today, you've been assigned ration duty. Not for people, though. Food is low, but for the horses. You're portioning out the last of the dried forage, bundled into neat hay straw twists and weighed by the feel of your hands. It's not precise, but you've learned how to judge it 1 big handful per foal, 2 for the elders, 3 for the mares and milk, and whatever's left for the grumpy geldings. Your pony waits patiently at the end of the line. She doesn't jostle forward like the others. She knows she'll get hers, and maybe she also knows that you always sneak her a little extra. You sing as you pass her a mouthful of dried stalks. She doesn't pause, just chews, with the slow determination of someone making it count. Mongol herders used songs for more than celebration. They used them for guiding the herd, for calming young colts, for making a day of rope tying go a little faster. There are songs for movement, for sleep, for sorrow, and some, like the one you're half singing now, are lullabies meant not for children, but for horses. A low, rolling tune with no words, passed down from someone who learned it by heart and hoof. Your grandmother says horses understand tone, not lyrics. A good song keeps the legs steady, she says, even if they're not moving. There's a fringe belief among older herders that certain rhythms, just right rhythms, can sync with a horse's heartbeat. That if you hum at the right pace, your pony will breathe slower, stand still longer, and rest more deeply. You've tested it. You're not sure it's science, but it works. Your cousin once sang to a feverish colt all night, not a healing chant, just the same lullaby, over and over, until the foal finally stopped trembling and fell asleep. The next morning, it stood up like nothing had happened. He never told anyone what song he sang, said it was just between him and the colt. You believe him. Today, the sky is pale and sharp. The herd moves slowly. So do you. Everyone's conserving energy riders, horses, even the dogs. You ride out only to check the perimeter. No gallops, just steady trots. You hum the whole way. Your pony responds. She keeps her ears forward, her steps light. You don't speak. You don't need to. And when you stop to rest by a cold stream and break a tiny sliver of dried apple in half, she takes it gently. She flicks her ears, then something unexpected. She snorts a short note, then hums. It's not music, not really, but it's rhythm, a soft, throat-deep vibration, not from fear, not from pain, from presence. You mimic it. She does it again. You sit together for a while like that, two bodies, two breathings, and the sound of a melody older than speech. Back at camp, you help your grandmother stitch an old lead rope. She's humming too. The same tune, different key. It floats between yurts, between fires, between horses standing still in the twilight. Later, before bed, you sit beside your pony, brush her back one more time, and hum the same lullaby into her mane. She doesn't move. You don't either. Because sometimes the most important thing you can give a horse isn't food, or freedom, or speed. It's a song. One slow, steady song to remind them. I'm here. You're safe. We're still together. There's a wedding coming. You can feel it before anyone says a word, horses brushed a little longer than usual, saddles polished until they reflect the sky. Children rehearsing dances in secret behind tents and pretending they're not rehearsing. Your aunt has begun boiling things that smell suspiciously like celebratory dumplings, and your cousin, normally allergic to effort, is combing his pony's tail. This is no ordinary day. In Mongol life, weddings weren't just between people. They were between families, clans, and, most importantly, herds. A marriage meant the merging of not just possessions, but lineages. A bride might arrive with a dowry of 5 horses, or 10, or 20, depending on her family's wealth and the groom's ability to stop grinning long enough to hold a bowl of erag respectfully. And the horses, they weren't background characters. They were center stage. Today, you've been asked to help prepare the bride's procession, which, as it turns out, means washing and decorating at least 3 of her finest mares, fitting them with ceremonial blankets, and helping teach one of the foals how not to scream when surrounded by drums. You begin with brushing. The lead mare is white and elegant, with a tendency to sneeze into your face whenever you pause. You scrub her coat until it gleams like cloudlight. Then you attach the saddle blanket red with gold thread, passed down for 4 generations. It smells faintly of wool, leather, and wildflowers dried by sunlight. Your grandmother brings the braid box, inside beads, threads, bells, and charms. Each has meaning. Blue for protection, red for courage, silver for fertility. You don't ask too many questions about that one. You braid the mane with care, threading in beads from the bride's family. The horse shifts gently beneath your hands, but doesn't fuss. She knows today is important. Mongol weddings often included horse races, dances on horseback, and gift exchanges involving entire herds. The groom might offer a stallion to his new in-laws, not as a transaction, but as a gesture. "This is the best I have," it says, "and now it's yours too." There's a fringe tale of a groom who showed up late to his own wedding because he refused to bring any horse but the one that raised him. It had gone lame the week before. He carried it across a river. They let him marry her anyway. Historians still argue whether such stories are literal or metaphorical. But here you believe it. By midday, the wedding drums begin, horses prance, guests arrive, some on foot, most on horseback, a few perched side saddle on carts filled with gifts, and old men who do not trust wheels. Your pony is brushed and bareback. She'll carry you during the blessing circle, a slow ride around the ceremonial fire, where bride and groom are honored by friends, family, and flame. The bride appears from her tent, veiled, radiant, and mounted atop a black mare so shiny it looks like it's been dipped in ink. The groom sits tall on a red roan, eyes wide but not terrified, yet the blessing begins. You ride with the circle, not fast, just enough for the hooves to mark the earth. Elders throw dried herbs into the fire, juniper, sage, and something that smells suspiciously like last week's leftover tea. Smoke curls into the sky. Horses flank the fire like honored guests, their manes braided, their bells jingling softly. When the bride reaches the far side of the circle, her mare stops, unprompted. She bows her head. The crowd goes quiet. Your grandmother whispers, she approves. And in that moment, it's true. You ride back toward camp under the growing dusk. The wedding feast begins: dumplings, fermented milk, roasted lamb, loud laughter, awkward dancing. Somewhere, a flute starts playing, and the horses. They eat extra tonight. Their feed is soaked in warm water, their stalls lined with clean straw, their bridles hung with ribbons. Because in Mongol weddings, it's not just the couple that unites. It's the horses, too. Tomorrow, the bride will ride with her new family, her new herd, her new trail. But tonight, she rides alone, her horse stepping high, her eyes forward. You watch her disappear over the hill, and your pony steps up beside you, quiet as a promise. You're moving again. Not just you, everyone. The yurts are coming down, the felt is being rolled, the dogs are barking at the dust, and the entire herd seems both confused and excited. It's migration day. Mongols are nomads, yes, but not wanderers. Moving camps is a rhythm, not a whim. You move for grass, for water, for wind protection, for ancestral roots, known only through memory and hoof. Today's move is short, just 15 kilometers northwest, toward a spring-fed valley your uncle swears smells like mint. If you squint, everyone's busy. Ropes are being coiled, saddlebags stuffed, food packed with vague optimism, and the horses. The horses know. Your pony is already pacing by the saddle rack, tossing her head. You haven't even packed your boots, and she's ready to go. You pat her flank. We're not leaving this second. She disagrees. Packing a mobile Mongol household is equal parts strategy and chaos. The heavy things go on carts beds, chests, cooking pots. The yurts come down like giant puzzles reversed. their bones tied into neat bundles. The felt gets rolled, strapped, and loaded. People ride, but horses carry. You help lead the pack horses to their starting positions. One has an entire yurt frame tied to its back, swaying like a skeletal turtle shell. Another is loaded with 4 giant sacks of dried dung fuel, possibly the most valuable thing you're moving. And your pony, she gets to carry you because you, lucky courier in training that you are part of the migration vanguard. You ride ahead, scanning for hazards, rivers, deep grass, bog patches. You mark the trail with stone stacks au vu for those behind you. Your pony moves steadily, ears twitching, hooves thudding with purpose. Migration isn't a race, it's choreography. The herd flows behind the carts. The elders ride slowly. The children nap in slings or play rock games on horseback. Dogs weave in and out, keeping stragglers in line. Every few kilometers, you stop to check hooves, adjust harnesses, breathe. And always, the horses stay close. There's an old saying, the land moves with the herd. You understand that now? Migration doesn't feel like leaving. It feels like carrying your home forward, one hoof print at a time. You pass familiar landmarks, a tree with a lightning scar, a boulder shaped like a frog, a patch of grass where your cousin once lost a boot and never got it back. Each place holds memory, but none holds you. You ride on. There's a fringe belief among older herders that some horses can smell old camps, that they'll pause where yurts once stood. Even years later, you test it. You watch as your pony halts, sniffs the ground near a grassy rise, and lowers her head. Her ears turn inward. She remembers. By midday, you crest the final hill. Below you the new sight, a shallow valley, a winding stream, tall grass, wind-sheltered. You exhale. It's perfect. You whistle, the signal. Behind you, the caravan slows. People begin untying. Carts stop. Horses are led to graze. And just like that, within hours, the camp is born again. Yurts rise like mushrooms. Fire pits are dug. Water is fetched. You unsaddle your pony. She rolls immediately. Legs kicking, back twisting. The dust flies. She stands, shakes, and looks at you like that was obviously the plan. Migrations were never just logistics. They were renewal. Mongols moved not to escape, but to continue, to let the land rest, to give the horses new strength, to remind everyone nothing is fixed except loyalty. That night, you sit outside your reassembled yurt, sipping a bowl of milk tea. Your legs are sore, your hands are filthy, your heart is calm. Your pony grazes nearby. Same sky, different ground, but still home. Because home, you've learned, is not a place. It's a direction, and a horse willing to walk there with you. There's snow in the air, though none has fallen yet. You can feel it just a scent at first, like cold stone and distant clouds. The horses feel it too. Their coats are thicker, their movements slower, more deliberate. Your pony stands with her nose to the wind, not sniffing, just listening.
Winter is coming.
And winter on the steppe isn't just a season, it's a campaign. Everything changes now. The grazing patterns, the yurt's orientation, the way you ride, the way you breathe. Even your voice drops a little lower, like raising it might break the fragile surface of the sky. You're assigned to winter prep herd management, hay checking, windbreak building, and ice monitoring duty. Not glamorous, but critical. First, hay. It's been stacked all summer in squat, tarp-covered piles near the edge of camp. You pull back the covers, check for mold, lift a chunk, and sniff, dry, crisp, saved. Horses here don't eat grain by default. They survive on grass even when that grass is frozen solid. But in true cold, you supplement. Hay soaked in warm water. bits of salted root, a lump of fat in hot milk for the foals. You help distribute it slowly, half to the pregnant mares, half to the elders. Your pony gets the last handful, and she doesn't protest. Just chews. Mongol horses dig for grass with their hooves in winter. They punch through snow and ice like miners, sniffing for familiar roots. You've seen a colt stomp in frustration, then give up only for his mother to step in, crack the crust, and nudge him forward. Food is work now. Survival is strategy. You ride the perimeter with your cousin, checking for wolves. Not sightings, just signs. Tracks, scents, still warm dung from animals that don't belong to you. The horses sense it before you do. They clump tighter, heads high. One mare, usually lazy, starts pacing. You whistle, low, warning. Nothing happens. That's the point. Back at camp, you help reinforce the windbreak's walls of brush, hide, and old fencing arranged to shield the herd. Horses don't like being boxed in, even by wind, but they'll tolerate it when the cold sinks past their skin. You build in gaps, always gaps. Room to move, to shift, to step away without panic. There's a fringe belief among some herders that horses' breath can warm more than themselves. That's standing close to one another. They share not just body heat, but intention, a kind of wordless consensus. We stay, it says, we're safe here. You test it that night. You sleep outside, wrapped in sheepskin, back against your pony's side. The wind howls, pulls at your blanket, stings your nose. But your pony doesn't move. Her body radiates warmth. Her breath fogs your ear. Every time the wind gusts, she shifts just slightly, so the worst of it hits her, not you. She does this without complaint. You think this is what loyalty means when nobody's watching. The next morning, snow falls. Not much. Just a few soft flurries, like the sky is testing your readiness. The herd is quiet, calm. Some of the foals try to eat the snowflakes. Your pony rolls in them. Everyone laughs. But your grandmother says, this is just the first breath. The real cold is behind it. So you get to work again, checking hooves for ice buildup, making sure no rope has frozen, ensuring no water troughs have cracked in the night. Winter is not cruel. It's just strict. It demands preparation. Mongols don't fear it, but they never underestimate it. Historians sometimes call the Mongols people of the horse, but that's only half true. Out here, you realize? You're people of the weathered horse. The wind-carved, frost-covered, ice-smart horse who stands between you and the end of everything. Your pony nuzzles your arm that evening. Her mane is dusted white. Her eyes are steady. You rest your head against her side and whisper, "We're ready." You wake to silence. Not the eerie kind, not the silence of storm, or absence, or fear. This silence is thick and soft, wrapped around you like felt. You know it before you open your eyes, snow. Real snow. You sit up slowly and look out from the yurt. The world is white, clean, flattened. The grass is gone, buried under a perfect layer of powder. Every sound, the crack of wood, the snort of a horse is muffled, softened, transformed. The herd is already awake, standing in a close cluster near the windbreaks. Your pony is there, shaking flakes from her mane with casual annoyance. She sees you and lifts her head, not in greeting, in expectation. Winter has begun, and so has your part in it. You dress quickly layered coats, wool boots, gloves that smell like old smoke. The cold hits your nose like a slap, but your body knows what to do. This is your third winter with the herd, and it's the first one where no one has to tell you what comes next. You move without thinking, check the feed, count the foals, break the thin crust of ice on the watering troughs. Your cousin joins you. You work together in silence, save for the occasional grunt or muttered joke about who smells more like goat. Your pony follows you all morning. Not close enough to trip you, just close enough to remind you she's watching. She steps where you step, waits when you pause, snorts when you forget the extra feed pouch. Later, the elders gather to talk about wind. Not weather, wind. Where it's coming from, what it's bringing. Mongols name their winds. West wind means dry. South wind, wet. The east wind brings sharpness, glass edges, a sudden shift. Your grandmother says the herd gets twitchy when the east wind rises. You start watching the ponies as much as the sky. That afternoon, a small ceremony takes place. Quiet, no drums, no banners, just the family and a round of milk tea. One of the oldest mares' blind tail is being retired from the lead rotation. Not because she's weak, because she's earned it. You help remove her old halter. You brush her one last time. You thank her. She doesn't understand the words, but she feels them. In the evening, the fire is warm, the wind is still, and your pony lies down beside the yurt without hesitation. That's rare. Most nights, she stands. Tonight, she sleeps. You sit beside her, tracing the whorls of her fur. She has changed. You both have. You remember the first time you touched her, the twitch of her ears, the hesitation in her step, the way she flinched when you stumbled near her flank. And now she lets you sleep against her belly in a snowstorm. Now she follows you before you whistle. Now she knows you. There's a moment, just before sleep, when you look up at the sky blanketed in stars, no moon, just pinpricks of cold light, and think, this life could have been anyone's, but somehow it's yours. And this horse chose to share it. You curl up in your blanket, nestled beside her flank. She breathes. You breathe. And together, in the silence of snow and sky and shared warmth, you fall asleep. So here you are, wrapped in quiet, the horses resting nearby, the steppe stretched out like a lullaby of white and gold. The wind has settled, the fire burns low, and the pony you trust more than anyone in the world exhales softly beside you. The journey's not over. Life on the steppe never really ends. It just flows, like hoofprints in snow that fade by morning, like songs hummed into manes, like the warmth left behind after your horse has walked away. You've learned to listen, really listen to twitching ears, to shifting weight, to silence filled with thought. You've learned to ride without reins, to ask without words, to say thank you with hands and hay and time. You've seen joy and storms and laughter in the middle of mud. You've seen how horses remember things we forget, how they lead us, sometimes, without us realizing we're following. You've become someone new, and your horse has too. So rest, now. Let your thoughts wander like a foal in spring. Let your shoulders soften, your eyes close. The camp is quiet, the herd is calm, and the pony who carried you across so many miles is breathing slow and steady, just outside your tent, guarding you without needing to guard at all. You're home. Not a place, a rhythm. And it's waiting for you in every heartbeat. Good night.